They left me to die beneath a sky the color of rust. With my ribs cracked, my canteen empty, and the last transport crawler shrinking into the red dust while my sister stood on its rear platform and watched me crawl. "You were never strong enough for the New World, Caleb," Mara shouted over the engine. Then she lifted the silver access key I had spent 6 years protecting and slid it into Dorian Vale's gloved hand. That key opened the only functioning underground reservoir within 300 miles. It was the difference between a settlement and a graveyard. It belonged to me. They took it anyway. The crawler turned toward the black horizon, carrying my water, my people, and the woman I had once called family. I was left in the wasteland with a broken leg, a mouth full of blood, and enough sunlight to cook me alive before noon. None of them knew that beneath my torn shirt, the green mark over my heart had begun to glow. The wasteland did not forgive weakness. It did not care that I had once repaired the pumps that kept Haven Ridge alive. It did not care that I had rebuilt filtration towers from scrap or crossed dead zones to recover medicine for children whose parents could not pay me. The sun hung over the earth like a white furnace. Heat shimmered above the cracked plain. Every breath scraped my throat raw. I dragged myself toward the shadow of a collapsed highway pillar. My left leg bent wrong below the knee. Bone had not broken through the skin, but I could feel the fracture grinding whenever my boot caught on stone. Blood soaked the side of my shirt where Dorian's men had driven a shock blade between my ribs. The wound was not deep enough to kill me quickly. That had been deliberate. Mara knew I hated slow deaths. She had known everything about me once. The pillar's shadow was barely wide enough to cover my head and one shoulder. I collapsed beneath it and pressed my palm over the wound. My hand came away wet and dark. The crawler was gone. Only its tracks remained, twin scars cutting across the red earth toward Haven Ridge. I stared at them until the heat blurred my vision. 3 hours earlier, I had believed I was bringing salvation home. The western condenser field had failed during the night. Without replacement regulators, Haven Ridge would lose half its water production before the next sunset. I had taken a repair crew to the ruins of Fort Mercer and recovered 6 military-grade pressure valves from an abandoned purification plant. 6 valves, enough to restore the field, enough to keep almost 8,000 people alive. Mara had insisted on coming with us. She said the settlement council had ordered her to verify the equipment. I should have questioned it. Mara had never cared about machinery. She cared about rooms where powerful people made decisions. But she was my sister. After our parents died during the ash plague, I had raised her. I had traded my apprenticeship wages for her medicine. I had gone hungry so she could eat protein grain instead of ration paste. When she wanted a place on the council, I used every favor I had earned to put her name forward. That was the mistake that had killed me. Dorian Vale had been waiting near the old solar trench with 12 armed men and 2 transport crawlers. He was Haven Ridge's defense commander, a man with polished boots, perfect teeth, and a talent for turning fear into obedience. His soldiers surrounded us before I understood what was happening. My repair crew lowered their tools. Mara stepped away from me. That was the moment the truth reached me. Not when Dorian smiled, not when his men disarmed my crew, when Mara moved to his side without looking back. I remembered the wind lifting strands of her dark hair across her face. I remembered the small green scarf around her neck, the one I had given her on her 18th birthday. I remembered thinking she looked frightened. Then she smiled. "Caleb," she said, "give him the reservoir key." I had laughed because the alternative was screaming. The key was not just metal. It carried my blood signature and command authority over Reservoir 9, an underground lake sealed before the wars. I had found it 2 years earlier beneath an old agricultural complex. I kept the discovery secret because Haven Ridge's council was already rotting from the inside. Dorian wanted that water. With Reservoir 9, he could control every ration line in the Eastern Territories. I looked at Mara and said, "You know what he'll do with it." She tilted her head. "He'll keep order. He'll sell water to people who are already dying. He'll make them useful." Dorian laughed softly. That laugh stayed with me now, beneath the broken pillar. He had walked close enough for me to smell the cedar oil he used on his coat. "You built a fine system," he said. "Pity you never understood ownership." I had refused to give him the key, so he took Mara's hand, placed a pistol against her temple, and told me to choose. I knew now that the weapon had not been loaded. I knew Mara had planned every second of it. But in that moment, I saw the child I had carried through smoke when our neighborhood burned. I saw the girl who used to wait outside the workshop with 2 tin cups of cactus tea. I saw my sister. I gave them the key. Dorian's men shot 2 members of my repair crew anyway. The others joined him. That betrayal hurt almost as much as Mara's. Almost, Dorian ordered his men to break my leg. Then he stabbed me and left me in the open. Mara watched. When I asked her why, she climbed onto the crawler and looked down at me as if I were something unpleasant stuck to her shoe. Because survival belongs to people willing to take what they need, she said. You spent your whole life giving things away. Then the crawler drove off. Now the memory burned hotter than the sun. I closed my eyes. My tongue had swollen against my teeth. I had perhaps an hour before heatstroke stole what remained of my mind. Less if the blood loss continued. A dry clicking sound came from the rocks behind me. I opened my eyes. A glassback scorpion crawled into the sunlight. It was longer than my forearm, its translucent shell filled with dark organs and pulsing venom sacs. Wasteland children learn to recognize glassbacks before they learn to read. One sting caused paralysis. Two stopped the heart. The creature raised its tail. I reached for the utility knife at my belt. Gone, Dorian's men had taken it. The scorpion moved closer. Its legs clicked against the stone. I tried to push myself upright, but my broken leg sent a white flash through my skull. I fell back, gasping. The scorpion paused beside my boot. I stared at it. It stared at me with clustered black eyes. Somewhere far above, a carrion kite circled. The wasteland was already dividing me. Then the mark over my heart burned. I tore open my shirt. The mark had been there since childhood, shaped like a curled leaf no larger than a thumbnail. My mother used to call it a blessing. Settlement doctors called it harmless pigmentation. Mara called it ugly. Now green light poured through my fingers. The scorpion recoiled. The light spread across my chest, branching like vines beneath my skin. It reached my shoulders, my throat, my wounded side. The pain vanished for one impossible second. A voice spoke inside my head, not through my ears. Inside me, life reserve critically low. Biological sanctuary awakening. I froze. The voice was calm, clear, and neither male nor female. My first thought was that the heat had destroyed my mind. Then the world folded. There was no flash, no explosion. One moment I lay beneath the highway pillar. The next, cool grass pressed against my back. I heard water. Real water. Not the metallic drip of a condenser pipe or the weak rattle of a ration pump. This was the deep, steady sound of a flowing stream. I opened my eyes, stretched above me, not rust red. Blue clouds drifted across it, white and soft. For several seconds, I forgot to breathe. I turned my head. A meadow spread in every direction, enclosed by distant hills covered in silver-green trees. Wildflowers moved in a breeze that smelled of rain and clean soil. A stream curved through the grass 20 steps away, clear enough to see smooth stones beneath the surface. I touched the ground. The soil was dark. Rich, alive, I dug my fingers into it and felt moisture beneath the surface. I began to laugh. The sound came out broken. Then I crawled toward the stream. Every movement reminded me that my body was still ruined. My leg dragged behind me. Blood continued to seep beneath my hand. But the air was cool, and every breath filled my lungs without pain. I reached the bank and plunged both hands into the water. It was cold. I lifted it to my mouth. The first swallow hurt so badly I almost choked. My throat had become too dry. I forced myself to take smaller sips. The water tasted faintly sweet. I drank until my stomach cramped. Then I lay with my face against the grass and cried. I had not cried when my parents died. I had not cried when ash fever took half our district. I had not cried when Dorian's soldiers broke my leg. But clean water did it. A soft tone sounded. Sanctuary owner recognized. Name required. I stared at the empty air. My name is Caleb Reed. Owner confirmed. The words appeared before me as pale green light. Sanctuary condition. Usable land. 1 acre. Freshwater source active. Time acceleration tenfold. Growth capacity. Unrestricted. Living storage available. Expansion requirement. Life energy. I read the words twice. Then a third time. I whispered. The glowing text faded. I looked around again. 1 acre did not match what I saw. The meadow seemed much larger. But when I tried to focus on the distant hills, my eyes slipped away from them. The usable section was marked by a subtle line in the grass, a square of dark fertile ground surrounding the stream. Beyond it, the land looked real but unreachable, like scenery behind glass. The sanctuary was dormant, but it existed. I pressed a hand to my wound. The bleeding had slowed. The edges of the cut were already tightening. I crawled farther into the stream and washed away the blood. The cold water numbed my ribs. When I touched my broken leg, the swelling remained, but the pain had lessened. Can this place heal me? No answer came. I searched the meadow. Near the edge of the usable land stood a small wooden table. I had not noticed it before. On the table sat 3 objects. A cloth pouch, a stone shaped like a seed. I dragged myself toward them. The pouch contained black grains smaller than lentils. The clay cup was empty. The stone seed was warm to the touch. The voice returned. Starter resources detected. Purification grass seeds, quantity 100. Vital spring vessel 1, sanctuary core. 1. I held the clay cup. Vital spring? Fill the vessel from the freshwater source. I did. The moment the cup filled, the water turned pale green. A scent like crushed mint rose from it. I hesitated only a second before drinking. Cold spread through my chest, not the cold of water. Something deeper. It flowed through my veins, reached the stab wound, then moved into my broken leg. I felt bone shift. I screamed. The cup fell from my hand. My leg straightened with a wet crack. For several terrible seconds, fire ran from my ankle to my hip. Then the pain stopped. I lay panting in the grass. The wound beneath my ribs sealed before my eyes. Torn flesh drew together. Bruising faded from black to purple, then yellow. Even the dryness in my eyes disappeared. I touched my side. Only a thin red line remained. My leg held. I took one step. Then another. A laugh rose from my chest, louder this time. I ran. I ran across the meadow until my breath came hard, then turned and ran back. My boots tore through soft grass. The wind struck my face. My body felt lighter than it had in years. I was alive. Mara had watched me die. Dorian had taken my key. Haven Ridge believed I was a corpse beneath the sun. They were wrong. I returned to the table and opened the pouch of seeds. Purification grass. The name sounded unimpressive, but nothing in this place was ordinary. I chose a strip of soil near the stream and pressed 10 seeds into the ground. I had grown fungus beds and saltroot in hydroponic trays, but I had never planted anything in real earth. I covered the seeds. The soil moved. Thin green shoots broke through almost immediately. I stepped back. The shoots grew as I watched. They stretched upward, split into narrow leaves, then spread across the ground in a dense emerald carpet. Tiny silver veins formed along the blades. The entire process took less than a minute. A new message appeared. Purification grass matured. Effect. Removes toxins from water and soil. Absorbs radiation. Converts pollutants into life energy. Harvest sanctuary day. Outside cycle. Less than 3 hours. I knelt and touched the grass. It was cool beneath my palm. Life energy increased. A thin line appeared in the air, filling with green light. I understood. The grass cleaned poisoned land. Poison became energy. Energy expanded the sanctuary. The wasteland outside was the most polluted place on Earth. I looked toward the invisible boundary. For the first time since the crawler disappeared, I smiled. The sanctuary released me when I thought of returning. The blue sky vanished. Heat slammed into me. I stood beneath the broken highway pillar, fully healed. The glassback scorpion was still beside my boot. Only a few seconds had passed. It lunged. I stepped aside and brought my heel down on its tail. The shell cracked. The creature twisted, claws snapping. I crushed its head with a stone. The green mark pulsed. Organic toxin source detected. Transfer available. I touched the scorpion. It disappeared. I returned to the sanctuary. The dead creature lay on the wooden table. The purification grass nearest it bent toward the body. Silver veins brightened. The scorpion began to dissolve into dark mist, which the grass absorbed. Life energy increased. The bar filled slightly. I stared at it. Anything poisonous can feed this place? Confirmed. The wasteland was made of poison. Radiation storms. Dead soil. Toxic wells. Ruined cities. For everyone else, it was a prison. For me, it was fuel. I walked to the boundary and placed the sanctuary core on the ground. The stone seed opened. Roots of green light spread through the soil. The earth trembled. A sapling rose from the center of the acre. Its trunk was white, its leaves deep green. It grew until it stood twice my height, then stopped. Sanctuary core established. New function unlocked. Sue function unlocked. Crop adaptation. New function unlocked. Owner transfer. I read the final line slowly. Owner transfer? You may carry non-hostile living organisms into the sanctuary. My heart began to pound. Living organisms. Seeds, animals, people. The settlement had thousands of starving families. But Haven Ridge was not the only community left. Across the wasteland, scattered camps survived on moldy grain and recycled water. Children grew up without seeing trees. Old people died because medicine required clean cultivation rooms no one could power. 1 acre was not a kingdom. Not yet. But the sanctuary grew from poison, and the wasteland offered more poison than I could consume in 100 lifetimes. I picked up the remaining purification grass seeds and returned outside. The sun had moved only slightly. I climbed the broken highway embankment and looked east. Far away, Haven Ridge sat behind walls of welded steel, its towers coughing gray smoke the sky. Dorian would reach it by nightfall. He would unlock Reservoir 9. He would announce that I had died during a scavenging accident. Mara would cry before the council. Then they would divide everything I had built, my workshop, my access rights, my repair contracts, my name. I touched the green mark over my heart. They believed water made them powerful. They believed one reservoir could make Dorian king. I looked down at the black seeds in my palm. I could grow clean soil in poisoned ground. I could turn radiation into life. I could create food where nothing survived. I could build beyond their walls, not another settlement, something greater. A place with rivers, orchards, fields so wide they would touch the horizon. A place no council could ration and no commander could seize with a key. Mara had told me survival belonged to people willing to take what they needed. She was wrong. Survival belonged to the person who could make what the world had lost. I closed my hand around the seeds. Keep the reservoir, I said to the empty wasteland. I'll build a kingdom that never needs it. Behind me, the dead red soil split open. A single green blade rose beneath the sun. The blade was no taller than my finger, but it should not have existed. Nothing green grew in open wasteland soil. Not without sealed glass, filtered water, nutrient pumps, and enough electricity to keep the roots from cooking. Even thorn moss, the hardiest plant in the eastern territories, curled black beneath direct sunlight. This blade stood upright. Its silver veins caught the light. I crouched and touched it. The soil around the root darkened in a circle no wider than my palm. A faint hiss rose from the ground. The smell of hot metal faded, replaced by something I had almost forgotten. Wet earth, purification grass growth initiated. Estimated maturity: 2 hours and 30 minutes. The sanctuary's tenfold acceleration only applied inside, but the seed carried some of its strength into the outside world. That changed everything. I planted 9 more seeds in a rough line beneath the highway pillar, spacing them far enough apart to see how their roots spread. Then I covered each one with loose dirt and marked the positions with white stones. I had 90 seeds left, too valuable to waste. My first instinct was to return to Haven Ridge before Dorian arrived and expose him. I could have slipped through the maintenance tunnels, reached the council hall, and forced Mara to explain why my blood was still warm when she had declared me dead. But anger was not a plan. Dorian controlled the guards. Mara controlled half the council. My old repair crew would confirm whatever story they were paid to repeat. If I appeared alive without proof, they would call me unstable, arrest me, and take whatever power had saved me. I had survived because they thought I was dead. For now, death was my best disguise. I searched the abandoned roadway. The old highway ran north toward the ruins of Belhaven and south toward a cluster of failed mining stations. Beneath the sand, its fractured lanes still formed the fastest route across the region. Scavengers avoided this section because glassbacks nested in the support pillars and a radiation sink lay less than a mile west. Radiation. Life energy. I looked toward the west. Heat waves shimmered above a shallow depression, filled with the rusted skeletons of vehicles. Old warning posts leaned from the ground. Their paint had faded, but the radiation symbol remained visible. No one sane went there. I started walking. My boots left clear tracks in the dust, so I moved along broken concrete whenever possible. I checked the horizon every few minutes. Dorian's crawler was gone, but other patrols used the highway. Raiders, water merchants, and Haven Ridge scouts all knew these routes. The sink appeared gradually. First the air changed. It tasted bitter. Then my skin began to prickle. The depression had once been a vehicle inspection station. A warhead or reactor cell must have ruptured nearby during the final years of the old world. The concrete had melted into black glass. Twisted frames protruded from the ground like the ribs of buried animals. A cracked radiation meter hung beside the nearest booth. Its needle rested beyond the red line. The green mark over my heart warmed. Toxic environment detected. Sanctuary absorption available. Show me how. A pale circle appeared in my vision, centered on the nearest patch of blackened soil. Transfer radius 3 feet. I stepped into the circle and placed my palm against the ground. The world tilted. Black dust lifted in threads around my fingers. It did not blow away. It gathered into a twisting stream and vanished through my skin without touching my flesh. The green mark blazed. Inside the sanctuary, I felt the purification grass awaken. The transfer lasted perhaps 10 seconds. When it ended, the patch beneath my hand had changed. The black sheen was gone. The dirt remained dry, but it was ordinary brown. I stared at the life energy bar. It had filled almost 1/10, one small patch. 1/10. I laughed under my breath. The radiation sink covered several acres. Expansion requires full life energy reserve. I moved to the next patch, then the next. Each transfer pulled poison from the earth and fed it into the sanctuary. Sweat ran down my back, but the process did not exhaust me. The green mark absorbed the contamination and sent it somewhere beyond my body. By the sixth patch, the energy bar was halfway full. By the ninth, it was nearly complete. I pressed my hand against a melted strip of road and watched dark vapor coil around my wrist. Life energy reserve full. Sanctuary expansion available. I released the ground. The bitterness in the air had weakened. Behind me, a trail of clean brown soil crossed the edge of the sink. I entered the sanctuary. The white trunk of the core tree pulsed with light. Expand sanctuary, yes. The ground trembled. The invisible boundary rushed outward. Grass rolled across newly claimed soil in a widening square. The stream stretched, curving through the larger field. The distant hills stepped back usable land, 2 acres. New resource unlocked, basic seed vault. A wooden chest rose from the soil beside the core tree. I opened it. Inside lay 6 cloth packets labeled in green light: wheat, potatoes, tomatoes, beans, apple. My hands tightened around the edge of the chest. I had seen pictures of apples in old books, red fruit hanging from branches. Children in the books held them casually, as if sweetness grew everywhere. In Haven Ridge, a preserved apple slice sold for more than a mechanic earned in a month. I lifted the packet. 12 apple seeds. Crop adaptation active. All sanctuary seeds can survive external wasteland conditions after 1 full sanctuary growth cycle. I read the message again. The sanctuary was not just a place to hide food. It could teach plants to survive outside. That was the foundation of an empire. I planted 4 apple seeds near the stream. Then I divided the second acre into rough sections and planted wheat, corn, potatoes, tomatoes, and beans. I had no tools, so I worked with my hands, using a flat stone to break the soil. The seeds responded before I finished. Potato shoots pushed upward behind me. Corn leaves unfolded in tight green spears. Wheat covered the far corner in a soft haze. The apple saplings grew more slowly, but their trunks thickened each time I looked away. I filled the vital spring cup and drank. The water erased my fatigue. For the next several sanctuary hours I worked. I learned the limits. Plants grew quickly, but they still needed harvesting. Harvested crops entered living storage when I touched them and gave the command. Time stopped inside storage. Tomatoes remained warm from the sun. Wheat kernels stayed dry. Potatoes carried dark soil on their skins. The sanctuary replicated seeds from every mature crop. 1 planted wheat seed produced a full stalk and returned several dozen viable grains. Potatoes multiplied even faster. Beans climbed invisible supports formed by green light. The apple trees reached my shoulders, then my height, then twice my height. White blossoms opened across their branches. The smell filled the meadow. I stood beneath them, stunned. The petals fell, small green fruit formed. I waited. The fruit swelled and turned red. When I picked the first apple, it fit perfectly in my palm. Its skin shone like polished lacquer. I bit into it. The crack echoed across the field. Juice ran down my hand. Sweetness hit my tongue so sharply that I closed my eyes. It was not ration sweetener. Not fermented cactus syrup. Tasted alive. I ate the entire apple, including most of the core. Then I laughed at myself and picked another. By the time I returned outside, less than an hour had passed. I carried a canvas sack from living storage containing 12 potatoes, 6 ears of corn, a bundle of beans, 4 tomatoes, and 3 apples. The heat wrapped around me again. But now the wasteland felt different. It was not empty. It was waiting. I returned to the highway pillar. The 10 purification grass shoots had spread into separate circles, each almost 2 feet wide. The soil beneath them had darkened. Tiny insects crawled between the blades. Insects. I had not seen harmless ground insects outside protected farms since childhood. A lizard watched from a crack in the concrete. The grass was already creating a living pocket. I checked the road. No dust trails, no engines. I took 1 potato from the sack and planted it near the grass, then a bean seed, then 1 kernel of adapted corn. The sanctuary indicated that the plants would mature within 2 days outside. 2 days. Without irrigation. Without shade, without filtered soil, I had proof. But I needed people. A kingdom required more than land. It required hands, loyalty, and a reason to exist. There was one place nearby where I might find all 3. Cinder Camp. It lay 14 miles south, built around the remains of an old freight terminal. Haven Ridge considered it a den of thieves. That was not entirely false. Smugglers passed through it. Runaways hid there. People sold broken equipment, old ammunition, and sometimes each other. But Cinder Camp also held the people Haven Ridge refused. The sick, the indebted, the ones who missed water payments. The ones Dorian's guards pushed beyond the wall. I had repaired their condenser twice without charging them. A woman named Elena Ward ran the camp's central kitchen. Her husband had died on a Haven Ridge work crew after Dorian refused to release antibiotics from the military storehouse. Elena never forgot debts. Neither did I. I moved south along the broken highway. The distance should have taken most of the day, but the vital spring had left strength in my muscles. I walked steadily, stopping only when I heard engines. Near an overturned tanker, I climbed into the shell of a bus and watched a patrol crawler pass. Haven Ridge markings, 4 soldiers. One of them stood behind the mounted rifle. Jace Holloway, my former crew chief. He had lowered his eyes when Dorian's men broke my leg. He had not helped me, but he had not joined the laughter either. The crawler slowed near the highway pillar in the distance. My chest tightened. Had they returned for the body? Jace climbed down. Even from far away, I recognized the way he walked, favoring his right knee after an old tunnel collapse. He approached the place where they had left me. The other soldiers remained on the crawler. Jace looked around. He crouched. Then he stood quickly and scanned the horizon. My body was gone, so was the dead scorpion. The purification grass might be visible from where he stood. One of the soldiers shouted something. Jace bent, tore up one small clump of grass, and shoved it into his coat. Then he returned to the crawler. He did not tell the others. The vehicle turned north. I stayed hidden until its dust faded. Jace had seen enough to know something was wrong. That made him dangerous. Or useful, I continued south. Cinder Camp announced itself with smoke. Not the thick industrial smoke of Haven Ridge. Thin gray streams rose from cook fires and scrap furnaces. The freight terminal's old loading cranes leaned above the walls like dead giants. The main gate consisted of 2 cargo containers welded together. A guard platform rested above them. A rifle followed me as I approached. "Stop there," I raised my hands. The guard wore a cloth mask and cracked goggles. I did not recognize him. Name, Caleb Reed. The rifle shifted. The guard disappeared from the platform. For a moment I thought he had gone to sound an alarm. Then the gate opened just wide enough for a woman to step through. Elena Ward had once been broad-shouldered and strong. Now hunger had narrowed her face. Gray streaked her black hair. She carried a shotgun across her chest. She stared at me. Caleb inconveniently alive. Her mouth opened. Then she struck me across the face. I accepted it. She grabbed my coat and pulled me closer. "We heard you were dead." Mara came over the radio herself. "Said raiders attacked your crew," she lied. Elena's eyes hardened. That part I believed. She looked alone? For now. The gate opened wider. Cinder Camp smelled smoke, oil, sweat, and sickness. Children sat in the shade of freight containers with empty bowls. A line of people waited near a condenser unit that clicked without producing water. Elena saw me looking. "The membrane split yesterday. We have maybe 6 gallons left." "How many people?" 283 this morning. "This morning? Old Benjamin died at noon," she said it flatly. There was no energy left for grief. I followed her through the camp. People recognized me. Some nodded. Others stared at my clean skin and steady walk. News traveled faster than water in the wasteland. By now they had probably heard the official version of my death. Elena led me into the central kitchen. The kitchen was an old station office with half the roof missing. 3 iron pots sat over low fires. 2 were empty. The third held thin gray soup. A little girl stood near the wall. She had red hair cut unevenly around her jaw and a face too pale beneath the dust. She watched the sack over my shoulder. "Elena," I said, "how long since they ate properly?" "Depends what you call properly. Anything solid." 3 days. I put the sack on the table. Elena's eyes narrowed. I opened it. Red tomatoes rolled into the light. The little girl gasped. Silence spread through the kitchen. Elena picked up one tomato as if it might explode. "Where did you get this?" "I grew it." Then at the tomato. Then back at me. "Caleb, I know how it sounds. There is no soil in 100 miles that could grow this." "There is now." The little girl moved closer. I held out an apple. She stopped. "Take it." She looked at Elena. Elena nodded once. The girl accepted the apple with both hands. "What is it?" "An apple." She studied it carefully. "Can I eat the red part?" "All of it except the seeds and stem." She bit. Her eyes widened. Then she began eating so quickly that Elena took the fruit from her. "Slow down, Tessa. You'll make yourself sick." Tessa swallowed and reached for it again. Elena cut the apple into thin pieces and gave her one at a time. I emptied the sack. Potatoes. Corn, beans, tomatoes. The second apple, the third. Elena touched each item. "This is enough for 1 meal, yes. For maybe 20 people, yes. There are almost 300 here." "I know." Her expression turned cold. "Then why show us?" "Because this is not charity." The kitchen became very still. I leaned both hands on the table. "I need workers, builders, farmers, mechanics, People willing to leave this camp and build something that belongs to them. Elena's eyes stayed on mine. West of the highway, the radiation sink, near it. You have heat sickness. I cleaned part of the sink this morning. She laughed once, without humor. No one cleans radiation with a broom. I did not use a broom. I took a potato and placed it on the table between us. This was planted, grown, and harvested today. That is impossible. I know, then tell me the truth. The truth is dangerous, so is starving fair. I lifted my shirt enough to show the green mark over my heart. It glowed faintly. Elena stepped back. Tessa stared. I found something, I said. A power. I do not understand all of it yet. But it grows food, purifies soil. Elena grip tightened around the shotgun. Old technology? No. Mutation? Maybe. Can Dorian take it? No. I hope that was true. Elena looked toward the doorway, then lowered her voice. If Haven Ridge learns you are alive, they will come. They will come anyway. Dorian has Reservoir 9 now. She went pale. You gave him the key? Mara put a pistol to her head. Understanding crossed Elena's face. Then disgust. She was part of it. Yes. Elena closed her eyes. When she opened them, grief had hardened into decision. What do you need first? The answer came in containers. Hand tools. Wire. And people who can keep a secret. That last one will be expensive. I have food. Food makes people talk. More food makes them loyal. She almost smiled. Almost a bell rang outside, 3 slow strikes. What ain't is that? Gate signal. A boy rushed into the kitchen. Wardens. Elena swore. How many? 2 crawlers, maybe 12 men. Dorians? The boy nodded. My blood cooled. They had arrived too quickly to be searching for me. Unless Jace had reported what he found. Elena shoved the potatoes back into the sack. Storage room now. No, Caleb, if they see you, they will burn this camp. They may burn it anyway. Outside, engines growled. A voice boomed through an amplifier. By order of Haven Ridge Command, Cinder Camp will surrender all unauthorized water reserves and submit to inspection. Elena's face twisted. They know our condenser is broken. That is why they came. She looked at me. I understood the pattern. Dorian had the reservoir. Now he was eliminating independent water sources and forcing camps to depend on him. The kingdom had begun before I was ready. Not mine, his. I closed the sack. Keep the food hidden. What are you doing? Finding out whether dead men still have authority. I walked outside. The camp had gathered near the gate. 2 Haven Ridge crawlers waited beyond it. Soldiers stood in body armor with rifles raised. Their commander wore a long gray coat despite the heat. Lieutenant Silas Venn, Dorian's favorite collector. Silas had built his reputation by squeezing settlements until desperation made resistance impossible. He smiled while doing it. The gate stood open. Elena joined me with her shotgun concealed behind her coat. Silas saw me. His smile vanished. For 1 second, no one moved. Then every rifle turned toward my chest. Silas recovered quickly. Well, he said, the desert returns what it cannot digest. I could say the same about Haven Ridge. His soldiers laughed uncertainly. Silas did not. Mara reported you dead. Mara reports whatever Dorian tells her. That sounds like treason. It sounds like experience. He stepped closer. You are under arrest for theft of council property, sabotage of the western condenser field, and murder of 2 repair workers. There it was. Dorian had already rewritten the story. He killed them. Dead men make poor witnesses. I am not dead. Silas smiled again. Not yet. Elena moved beside me. This is Cinder Camp territory. Silas glanced at her. Cinder Camp has no recognized territory. We have walls. You have scrap. We have guns. You have 8 working rifles and ammunition for perhaps 3 minutes. Elena's face did not change, but he was probably right. Silas raised a tablet. Command has declared all water infrastructure subject to emergency seizure. Your condenser, storage drums, and remaining reserves now belong to Haven Ridge. A murmur spread through the camp. A mother pulled 2 children behind her. Elena said, you take our water, people die tonight. Silas shrugged. Then apply for relocation. To Haven Ridge? If you meet labor requirements. Everyone knew what that meant. Debt contracts. Factory shifts. Children assigned to sorting lines. Dorian did not rescue people. He purchased them with their own thirst. Silas looked back at me. On your knees, Caleb. I counted the soldiers. 12. 2 unmounted rifles. Silas carried a sidearm. Elena had 1 shotgun. The camp had perhaps 8 rifles, just as he said. I could retreat into the sanctuary instantly. But the people around me could not. Not without touching them. And I did not know how many I could transfer at once. A fight would become a massacre. So I knelt. A shocked whisper moved through the crowd. Silas's smile widened. Still sensible, I placed 1 hand against the dirt. The green mark warmed. Toxic source detected. The ground beneath Cinder Camp was contaminated by decades of fuel spills, battery acid, and furnace waste. Transfer available. I looked up at Silas. Do you know why nothing grows here? He frowned. What? Not because the sun is too hot. I activated the transfer. Dark vapor erupted from the ground. People screamed and stumbled back. The vapor spiraled around me, flowing into the mark beneath my shirt. Across the camp, oily soil changed color. Black stains vanished. The air lost its chemical bite. Silas drew his pistol. What did you do? I stood. The life energy bar filled in a rush, almost full. Not enough. I needed more. I looked toward the crawlers. Their fuel cells leaked radiation. The green circle expanded in my vision. Transfer radius increased. 10 feet, the sanctuary had responded to the larger energy source. I stepped toward Silas. He raised the pistol. Stop. Stop or I shoot. You came for water, I said. Let me show you what you should have asked for. I pushed the sanctuary's pull outward. The nearest crawler died. Its engine cut mid-growl. Lights vanished. The mounted rifle's power system went dark. A wave of black vapor poured from beneath its armor and streamed into me. Life energy reserve full. Sanctuary expansion available. New emergency function unlocked. External manifestation. Cost 1 full life energy reserve. I did not know what external manifestation meant, but 12 rifles were aimed at people who had not eaten in 3 days. Use it. The ground shook. A line of green light raced from beneath my boots. It crossed the camp, passed through the gate, and spread beneath the soldiers. Silas fired. The bullet struck my chest, or tried to. A wall of roots exploded from the earth between us. The shot buried itself in living wood. Everyone froze. The roots twisted together, thick as a fortress gate. Leaves burst from them. Vines wrapped around the soldiers' rifles and tore the weapons from their hands. The second crawler reversed. Roots punched through its wheels. The machine tilted and crashed onto its side. Silas stared at the green wall. Then at me, his pistol trembled. Behind him, clean water burst from the ground. Not a flood, a spring. It rose between broken slabs of concrete, clear and bright, spilling into a shallow basin formed by roots. The people of Cinder Camp went silent. Tessa stepped from the kitchen doorway. She still held a slice of apple. Silas turned toward the spring. Greed replaced fear in his eyes. Command will claim this site. I walked through the opening in the roots. No, you cannot stop Haven Ridge. I just stopped 2 crawlers. This is council territory. No, I moved close enough that he had to look up at me. This is mine. He swallowed. Then he glanced toward his soldiers. They were unarmed, tangled in vines, and trying not to move. Silas lowered his pistol, a wise decision. I took it from his hand. You will return to Haven Ridge, I said. You will tell Dorian that Cinder Camp has no water for him. Silas looked toward the spring again. He will send more men. I am counting on it. You think this trick makes you powerful? No, I handed his pistol to Elena. Food makes me powerful. I opened the canvas sack. Then I reached into living storage. The sanctuary responded. Crates appeared one after another on the dirt. Potatoes, corn, beans, tomatoes, apples, wheat. Enough food to cover the ground between us. Gasps rose from the crowd. Silas's face emptied. I looked past him at the soldiers. Go back thirsty. Then I looked at the people of Cinder Camp. Anyone who stays works. Anyone who steals leaves. Anyone who betrays us gets 1 warning if the mistake is small and none if it is large. Elena watched me carefully. What are we building? I looked beyond the walls, toward the dead land waiting beneath the sun, a place where no one begs for water. The root wall opened. Silas and his soldiers stumbled toward the surviving crawler. They dragged the damaged machine behind them until its broken wheels carved trenches in the dirt. Silas climbed aboard. Before the crawler moved, he turned back. Dorian will come himself, I smiled. Tell him to bring Mara. The crawler disappeared north. No one in Cinder Camp spoke until the dust settled. Then Tessa ran to the spring. Elena caught her before she could drink. Wait. I knelt beside the water and filled the vital spring cup. The liquid stayed clear, safe. I drank first. Then I handed the cup to Tessa. She swallowed and looked at the spring as if it were a miracle. It was. Behind us, the first purification grass began spreading across the camp. The people stared at the food. At the water, at me. I understood the danger in their eyes. Hope was more powerful than hunger. It was also harder to control. Elena stepped onto an overturned crate. You heard him, she shouted. No one touches the stores until we count them. Form lines. Children and sick first. The camp moved, not chaotically, with purpose. I watched Elena organize work groups, assign guards, and send mechanics to strip the dead crawler for parts. She did not ask permission. That was why I trusted her. A thin man named Owen Pike inspected the spring basin and told me he had once worked on irrigation systems. 2 sisters, Ruth and May Calder, volunteered to inventory seed. A former surveyor named Hollis Grant drew a map of the camp on the back of a shipping manifest. Names, skills, the first pieces of a kingdom. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I kept looking north. Dorian would not ignore humiliation. Mara would not ignore my survival. And Jace had carried a piece of purification grass into Haven Ridge. By nightfall, they would know I had something they could not understand. By morning, they would come to take it. As the sun lowered, the sanctuary mark pulsed again. External settlement established. Population, 282. Loyalty threshold insufficient. Defense threshold insufficient. Food reserve, 3 days. Primary threat detected. Haven Ridge Assault Force mobilizing. Estimated arrival. 11 hours. I read the final line twice. Then a new message appeared. First settlement mission. Survive the siege reward. Sanctuary gate. Failure settlement annihilation. I looked toward the northern horizon. A red flare rose in the distance. Then another. Then a third. Haven Ridge war signals. Dorian was not waiting until morning. He was already coming. The first war crawler appeared before the last light left the sky. It rolled over the northern ridge on 6 armored wheels, its engine growling through the dry air. A steel ram covered its front. A heavy rifle turned above the cab. 2 more crawlers followed behind it, then a fuel carrier, then a troop transport with Haven Ridge's black sun painted across its side. Dorian had sent more than a patrol. He had sent an army. I stood on the roof of the eastern cargo container with Elena beside me. Below us, Cinder Camp moved in hard controlled lines. Hollis marked firing positions with chalk. Owen and the mechanics dragged metal panels into place behind the root wall. Ruth and May carried food and water to the defenders. No one ran, that mattered. Fear was natural. Panic was contagious. Elena had cut the infection out before it could spread. How many? She asked. I counted the vehicles again. 5 crawlers. 1 troop carrier. At least 40 soldiers. We have 11 rifles now. 8 that work. 11 if you do not mind where the bullets go. I mind, she glanced at me. That was almost a joke. I am growing. The sanctuary mission remained in the corner of my vision. Survive the siege. Settlement population. 282. 31%. Food reserve. 2 days and 18 hours. The food estimate had dropped because the entire camp had eaten. I did not regret that. Hungry people obeyed until fear became stronger than hunger. Fed people could think. A red light blinked on the lead crawler. A speaker crackled. Caleb Reed. Dorian's voice rolled across the open ground. Even through a damaged amplifier, he sounded calm. He had always understood the value of composure. Men followed confidence long after wisdom failed. You have stolen military property, he said. You have attacked Haven Ridge personnel. You have contaminated civilians with an unknown biological weapon. Elena lowered her binoculars. Biological weapon? The tomatoes must have frightened him. He never liked vegetables. Below us, Tessa crouched beside the spring with the other children. She held an apple core in one hand and a small knife in the other. Elena saw her. Tessa. Shelter, I can carry water. You can carry it underground. Tessa hesitated. Elena pointed. The girl obeyed. The freight terminal had old service tunnels beneath the eastern platform. They were narrow, damp, and partially collapsed, but they could protect the children if bullets crossed the walls. Dorian continued. Surrender Caleb Reed and all stolen materials. Every other resident will receive water amnesty and relocation review. A bitter laugh moved through the defenders. Water amnesty. Dorian had invented a crime and offered forgiveness for it in the same sentence. I took the hand microphone Owen had wired to a salvaged speaker. Your lieutenant already inspected our water. Silence. Then Dorian said, Silas Venn acted without full authority. Silas stood on the platform of the second crawler. His gray coat was gone. A bandage wrapped his forehead where the damaged crawler had thrown him against its frame. Even at this distance, I could see hatred in the set of his shoulders. He told us you sent him, I said. Then he misspoke. Silas turned toward the lead vehicle. The movement was small, but I saw it. So did Elena. Dorian is cutting him loose, she murmured. He always cuts the rope before the weight pulls him down. The speaker crackled again. You are injured and confused, Caleb. Your sister is concerned for you. That hit harder than it should have. I looked at the troop carrier. Its side door remained closed. Mara might be inside. Dorian knew I would wonder. He used uncertainty the way other men used knives. Send her out, I said. Then she is not here. I speak for Haven Ridge. That is the problem. The defenders laughed. Dorian's voice hardened. You have 10 minutes. The transmission ended. The crawlers stopped 300 yards from the gate. Soldiers dismounted behind steel shields. Haven Ridge had not come to negotiate. The 10 minutes gave them time to deploy. I climbed down. Elena followed. What can your green miracle do? She asked. Not enough. Can it make another wall? The first one emptied the sanctuary's energy. Can you refill it? From radiation, fuel leaks, toxins. She looked toward the enemy vehicles. They brought fuel. Yes. Her eyes narrowed. That sounded dangerous. It is only dangerous if they shoot me. They are here specifically to shoot you. Then I should be careful. I crossed the camp toward the northern wall. Owen met me beside a trench filled with rusted spikes. He was thin enough that his belt wrapped almost twice around his waist, but his hands were steady. "We stripped the dead crawler," he said. "Power cell still has charge. Steering unit is ruined. 3 shots before the capacitor melts. Make them count." That is generally how I approach ammunition. I pointed to the central gate. "Open it." Owen stared at me. Elena said, "He means after we put something in front of it. I mean now." The men nearby stopped working. Elena moved closer. "Explain." "Dorian expects us to hide behind the wall. He will use the crawlers to break it, then send soldiers through the opening." "That sounds likely. So we give him the opening." Silence. I looked at Hollis's map. Cinder Camp's northern road narrowed between 2 rows of welded containers. If the lead crawler entered, the second would have to follow directly behind it. A killing corridor. But we did not have enough weapons to kill everyone inside. We needed the vehicles intact. We needed the soldiers alive long enough to understand they had lost. I tapped the map. Move the food underground. Put every civilian in the eastern tunnels. But no one will place the rifles until I give the word. "What will you be doing?" "Standing at the gate." "No, that was not a request." Her jaw tightened. "You are building a kingdom, not volunteering for execution." "Why?" "The sanctuary can drain their power cells. You did that from 10 feet away. The larger the source, the farther the transfer may reach." "May? I am still learning." Elena leaned over the map. "If it does not work, then Owen fires the mounted rifle into the lead driver compartment. And you?" "I move. With your miraculous bulletproof roots?" "Those roots are gone. You should have led with that." I gave orders until everyone had something to do. Within minutes, Cinder Camp changed shape. Food vanished beneath the eastern platform. Water containers moved into the tunnels. Scrap barricades were pulled away from the gate. The entrance stood open, revealing a straight road through the center of the settlement. An invitation. Dorian's army saw it. Silas did too. I walked outside alone. The evening sun had become a red disk against the horizon. Wind pushed dust across the open ground. Haven Ridge soldiers watched me through rifle sights. The mark over my heart remained cool. Too far. I stopped 100 yards from the lead crawler. Dorian stood on its upper platform. He wore black armor beneath a long coat. His silver hair was cut close to his head, no helmet. He wanted everyone to see that he did not fear the wasteland. Silas stood on the second crawler. Jace Holloway was beside him. My former crew chief looked thinner than he had that morning. The clump of purification grass was no longer visible, but his right hand remained near the inside of his coat. Dorian lifted one hand. "The rifle's lowered slightly," he asked, waiting. "For what?" "To see whether you are smarter than Silas." Silas stepped forward. "I should have killed you at the gate." Dorian turned his head. Lieutenant Silas went still. There was no rebuke in Dorian's voice. That made it worse. I smiled at him. Dorian noticed. "What do you want?" he asked. "My repair crew released. They are not prisoners. Then they can leave. No one is stopping them." I looked at Jace. "Walk." Every soldier watched him. Jace did not move. Dorian said he. "No," I said. Fear. Jace's mouth tightened. Dorian climbed down from the crawler. He approached until 20 yards separated us. "You were useful once, Caleb. I can still use you. You took the reservoir. You found it for Haven Ridge. I found it while Haven Ridge was refusing parts for Cinder Camp's condenser. This place is not sustainable. It has clean water. For one day, it has food for one meal." I looked back at the open gate. Green purification grass had spread along both sides of the road. Dorian's expression did not change, but I saw the calculation behind his eyes. "How?" he asked. "Interested? I am offering you a chance to survive." "I survived your first offer." The wind shifted. Behind Dorian, one of the crawler engines released a thin ribbon of black smoke. The mark warmed. "Toxic source detected. Transfer available radius 30 feet. Not enough. Dorian stood 20 yards away. The crawler was farther. I needed him to advance, so I gave him what he wanted. I stepped backward. Dorian saw retreat. Silas saw weakness. "Commander," Silas said, "let me take him." Dorian considered me for 1 second. Then he nodded. Silas jumped from the second crawler with 6 soldiers. Jace remained behind. Silas drew a shock baton. Its blue arc snapped in the evening air. "You embarrassed me," he said. "You arrived embarrassed." The soldiers spread around me. I kept moving backward. 10 steps, 20. The lead crawler followed. Its engine growled as it rolled closer to the gate. The second vehicle moved behind it. Dorian remained beside the first, walking at the same speed. The mark grew hotter, transfer radius 40 feet. Silas mistook my silence for fear. He swung the baton. I caught his wrist. The impact numbed my fingers, but the vital spring strength held. I twisted. Bone cracked. Silas screamed. I tore the baton from his hand and drove the handle into his mouth. Teeth struck the dirt. The soldiers raised their rifles. Dorian shouted, "Alive!" That command saved me. They hesitated. I struck the nearest soldier across the throat, pulled him in front of me, and shoved him into the second. A rifle fired into the ground. Silas crawled toward his fallen pistol. I kicked it away. The lead crawler passed the open gate. The second followed. Exactly as planned. I released the soldier and ran. Bullets struck the dirt behind me. The command to take me alive had lasted less than 3 seconds. I crossed into Cinder Camp. The lead crawler accelerated. Its steel ram smashed through the last wooden barrier and entered the container corridor. The second crawler came behind it. Then the troop carrier. Too many. Perfect. I stopped in the center of the road and turned. The crawler charged. 70 feet. 50. The mounted rifle rotated toward me. The mark burned. Multiple toxic energy sources detected. Combined transfer available. Warning. Uncontrolled absorption may damage sanctuary core. I planted my feet. Do it. Dark vapor erupted from all 3 vehicles. The air filled with black streams. They twisted together above the corridor, forming a cloud that blocked the dying sun. Soldiers shouted. Engines coughed. Lights flickered. The cloud struck me. Pain tore across my chest. The green mark expanded over my skin, branching from my heart to my shoulders and down both arms. I felt the sanctuary core tree bending beneath an invisible storm. Life energy rose too quickly, full, then beyond full. The bar cracked. X energy detected. Emergency conversion required. Expand. Expansion unavailable during external transfer. The lead crawler did not stop. Its engine was dying, but its weight carried it forward. 40. The mounted rifle fired. The shot passed over my shoulder and tore through a container wall. Owen answered. The salvaged gun on the roof fired once. Its round struck the lead crawler's front wheel. Steel burst outward. The vehicle twisted, but momentum kept it sliding toward me. 20 feet, I pushed harder. The power cells screamed. Green light burst from the seams of the vehicles. The troop carrier's doors opened. Soldiers jumped out, only to find vines rising through the road beneath them. Not roots summoned from nowhere. Purification grass, every silver vein shone. The grass had absorbed enough spilled fuel and contamination to mutate. Its blades lengthened into cords. They wrapped around boots, ankles, rifles, and axles. The lead crawler struck the road sideways. I threw myself clear. Its steel ram passed close enough to tear my coat. The vehicle crashed into the container wall. The second crawler slammed into it. The troop carrier struck both. Metal folded. Glass shattered. The corridor filled with smoke. Elena shouted now. Cinder Camp's defenders rose above the containers. 11 rifles aimed downward. No one fired. They did not need to. The Haven Ridge soldiers were trapped between dead vehicles and living vines. Their rifles had lost power assistance. Their communication gear was dark. The mounted guns hung useless. Owen fired his second shot into the ground in front of them. The explosion threw dust over the corridor. Drop everything, Elena shouted. A rifle clattered. Then another, then 10. Silas staggered through the gate behind the convoy, blood covering his mouth. He still held the shock baton in his unbroken hand. You cowards, he screamed. Fight. No one obeyed. Dorian had not entered the corridor. He stood outside with the remaining soldiers and 2 functional crawlers. He had stopped at the gate. Smart, the bliper continued pouring into me. My vision turned green. The sanctuary core groaned inside my mind. I tried to end the transfer. It did not stop. Excess energy critical. Core rupture imminent. I fell to one knee. The soil beneath my hand pulsed. I heard the sanctuary voice. Choose emergency conversion. Growth. Restoration. 3 options appeared before me. Defense might save us from Dorian. Growth might expand the sanctuary. Restoration might repair the damage. But the core would rupture before I could understand the consequences. I chose growth. The world detonated in green. Light raced beneath Cinder Camp. The ground rolled like water. Every person fell. The spring overflowed, sending clear streams through newly formed channels. Purification grass spread beyond the walls in all directions. It crossed the open wasteland, fuel residue, and radiation. Then trees rose. Thin at first. White trunks broke through the earth along the northern road. Branches unfolded. Leaves opened in waves. Their roots wrapped around the dead crawlers but did not crush them. The air changed. Cool wind moved across the camp. Real wind carrying moisture, clouds formed above us. Small, gray, impossible clouds. Rain began to fall. No one moved. Drops struck the metal roofs. They tapped against armor and weapons. They darkened the dust. Tessa emerged from the tunnel and lifted both hands. Rain ran down her face. The people of Cinder Camp followed. Some laughed. Some cried. One old man dropped to his knees and pressed his forehead to the wet ground. I remained kneeling in the center of the road. The pain faded. The green mark contracted until only the leaf remained over my heart. Emergency growth complete. External restoration zone established. Area 20 acres. Settlement defense threshold 78%. New structure unlocked. Sanctuary gate. Mission update. Enemy command remains active. The trapped Haven Ridge soldiers stared at the trees. Jace climbed down from the second crawler. A vine released his boot before he pulled against it. So did I. He walked toward me with both hands visible. Silas saw him. Get back in formation. Jace ignored him. Crew Chief Holloway, Silas shouted. That is an order. Jace stopped beside me. He reached into his coat. Elena aimed her rifle. He slowly removed the clump of purification grass he had taken from the highway. It was still alive. Its roots had wrapped around a piece of brown soil. I did not report this, he said. I know, I told Dorian there was no body. That was enough. His eyes lowered. I sure was afraid. Yes. Silas rushed forward. You worthless bastard. He raised the baton. Jace turned. Silas swung. A vine snapped around his wrist and pulled him off his feet. He hit the road face first. His remaining teeth struck stone. The baton slid away. Jace stared at the vine. I looked toward the core tree visible beyond the containers. The sanctuary had chosen. Or perhaps it had obeyed something I wanted before I knew I wanted it. Silas rolled onto his back. Blood filled his mouth. He pointed at Jace. Dorian will hang you. Jace looked toward the gate. Dorian stood in the rain. His coat darkened beneath the water. Soldiers waited behind him. His expression remained calm, but his eyes had changed. He no longer saw a mechanic who had survived. He saw a rival. Dorian spoke through the amplifier. Lieutenant Venn. Silas twisted toward him. Give me 5 men. I can still secure the camp. No, Silas blinked. Dorian looked at the wrecked crawlers. At the highway, you failed to recover a wounded man, Commander. At Cinder Camp, you lost 2 vehicles. He used witchcraft. You entered a narrow corridor without securing the walls. Silas's face went white beneath the blood. I followed your order. Dorian's voice sharpened. I ordered you to take Caleb alive. I did not order incompetence. Silas looked around. His soldiers would not meet his eyes. He had spent years humiliating them. Now Dorian had given them permission to abandon him. Return to the line, Dorian said. Silas tried to stand. The vine tightened. He fell again. Dorian watched. He made no attempt to help. Silas understood. The commander had already decided he was more useful as blame than as a lieutenant. He turned toward me. Release me. I walked closer. Why? I have information. You had information this afternoon. I know Haven Ridge's defenses, water stores, patrol schedules. So does Jace. Silas looked at him with murder in his eyes. I know what Dorian plans. What does he plan? Silas swallowed. Release me first. No, his breathing quickened. Men like Silas confused cruelty with value. They believed the secrets they collected made them irreplaceable. But he had shown me every important thing about Dorian already. Dorian sacrificed failure. He protected the appearance of control, and he wanted my power badly enough to mobilize before understanding it. Silas had nothing I needed. I crouched beside him. This morning you told Elena that Cinder Camp had 8 rifles and ammunition for 3 minutes. His eyes shifted toward her. You counted weapons because you thought that was all power was. I picked up his shock baton. Rain hissed against its electric arc. You were wrong. He tried to pull away. The vine held him. What are you going to do? I looked at the people gathered above the corridor. At the mothers Silas had threatened with thirst. At the children he planned to sell into labor contracts. At the Haven Ridge soldiers who watched their lieutenant beg. Cinder Camp has one law for theft, I said. Return what you took and leave. I took nothing. You took water from 6 outer settlements last winter. His face changed. Elena stepped forward. My husband died because you seized our antibiotics. That was Dorian's order, and you smiled. Silas looked toward the gate again. Dorian did not move. Rain ran into Silas's eyes. Caleb, he whispered. We can make an agreement. You offered me one at the gate. I placed the baton against the metal clasp of his command insignia. The arc flashed. The black sun emblem melted. Silas screamed as hot metal burned through his uniform. I pulled the baton away. You no longer speak for Haven Ridge. I cut the vine. He scrambled upright. For one hopeful second, he believed I had spared him. Then the families from the outer camps stepped from the crowd. I recognized some of them. A woman whose water drums Silas had seized. A miner whose son had died during relocation. An old man with scars around both wrists from a Haven Ridge debt chain. They surrounded him. I did not give an order. I did not need to. Silas ran toward Dorian. The gate roots closed. He struck them with both fists. Commander. Dorian watched from the other side. Commander, open it. Dorian turned away. Silas began to scream. The people behind him moved closer. I walked back toward Jace. What happens to him? Jace asked. What should have happened years ago? A blow landed behind us. Then another. Silas shouted Dorian's name until his voice broke. Dorian reached the lead crawler outside the wall. Before climbing aboard, he looked at me. You think this is victory? I picked up the hand microphone. No. Rain fell harder. This is agriculture. The Dorian did not. His gaze moved over the trees, the spring, the vines, and the surrendered soldiers. He was measuring everything. What you have belongs to Haven Ridge, he said. You already used that line. You cannot defend these people forever. I do not need forever. I looked at the purification grass spreading beyond his boots. I need one growing season. For the first time, Dorian's control cracked. Only slightly. His jaw tightened. Then he climbed into the crawler. The remaining vehicles turned north. No one fired at them. I wanted Dorian to return. I wanted him to bring every ambitious council member, every corrupt officer, and every person who believed water gave them ownership over human lives. The crawlers disappeared into the rain. Behind me, the beating stopped. Silas Venn lay in the wet road without his coat, his insignia, or the authority that had protected him. He was alive, barely. Elena looked at me. Why leave him breathing, so he can walk back? He will not make it. I looked north. That is his decision. Jace stood in the rain, surrounded by soldiers who no longer had a commander. What happens to us? He asked. The surrendered men watched me. Some were frightened, some ashamed. A few looked angry enough to kill me if given the chance. You choose, I said. Return to Haven Ridge without weapons or remain here and work. One soldier stepped forward. The honesty surprised him. Trust is earned. Food is earned. Protection is earned. And if we leave, you leave. No chains? No. He looked toward the crates of food. Then at the spring, I am staying. 2 more joined him. Then 5. Jace did not hesitate. All of my repair crew stays. Your crew helped Dorian leave me to die. They were threatened, so were you. He accepted the blow. I will earn it. I held out my hand. Start with the crawlers. He took it. The sanctuary chimed. First antagonist defeated. Settlement defense successful. Reward granted. Sanctuary gate available. Loyal secondary bond established. Name. Jace Holloway. The words faded before I could consider them. At the center of Cinder Camp, roots rose from the earth and formed a circular arch. Green light filled the space inside it. Beyond the light, I saw the blue sky of the sanctuary. The gate was large enough for a wagon. Large enough for livestock. Large enough for people. A murmur spread through the camp. Elena walked beside me as I approached it. What is on the other side? The future. I stepped through. The sanctuary had expanded again. Fields rolled beyond the stream. The apple orchard stretched across a hillside. Wheat moved in golden waves. A second spring flowed beside the white core tree. But something else stood near the boundary. A stone building. Its doors were sealed with black metal. New structure detected. Seed archive. Access restricted. Requirement 1,000 units of life energy. One viable pre-war genetic key. I touched the door. A map appeared across its surface. Not of the sanctuary. Of the eastern territories. Green points marked contaminated zones. Blue points marked underground water. Red points marked settlements. One red point pulsed brighter than all the others. Haven Ridge. Text formed beneath it. Hostile faction identified. Leader Dorian Vale. Primary resource. Reservoir 9, hidden resource, Pruar Agricultural Gene Bank. My hand went still. Reservoir 9 had never been only a reservoir. Beneath the water lay a gene bank. Seeds from before the wars. Perhaps millions. And Dorian had my key. A second line appeared. Genetic key activation scheduled. 48 hours, irreversible extraction risk. The sanctuary had given me a kingdom. Now it showed me the treasure Dorian was about to destroy. I stepped back through the gate. Jace waited on the other side. His face told me he had already guessed the news was bad. What is it? He asked. Reservoir 9. He lowered his voice. What about it? There is something beneath the water. His eyes flicked toward the northern road. Dorian moved excavation equipment there yesterday. How much? Everything from the western quarter. When does he start? Jace hesitated. Tomorrow night. 48 hours. The sanctuary had not been estimating. It had been warning me. Dorian believed he had stolen water. In reality, he held the last library of living seeds in the Eastern world. If he opened it incorrectly, he could erase species that had survived the apocalypse only in sealed darkness. I looked at the captured crawlers, at the soldiers willing to defect, at the rain falling over our first 20 acres of green land. Silas had been the first enemy to fall. Dorian was larger, Haven Ridge was stronger, and now the next battle had a date. I turned to Jace, repair every vehicle. Then I looked at Elena, choose 50 people who can move quietly. Her eyes sharpened. For defense? No. I watched the northern storm swallow the last trace of Dorian's convoy. We are going to steal back the future. We left Cinder Camp before dawn. Rain still darkened the road, but the storm had weakened to a mist that clung to the new leaves. 50 people moved between the trees in silence. Some wore Haven Ridge armor stripped of its black sun insignia. Others carried old hunting rifles, cutting tools, wire, and coils of rope. 2 captured crawlers rolled behind us, with their engines muffled. Jace had worked through the night to repair them. The lead vehicle still pulled to the left, and the rear axle complained whenever it crossed broken concrete, but both machines moved. That was enough. Elena rode beside me in the first crawler. She had selected the team herself. Jace and 6 mechanics, Owen Pike with 3 demolition workers, Ruth and May Calder carrying seed cases and medical packs. 12 former Haven Ridge soldiers who had chosen Cinder Camp. The rest were hunters, surveyors, and people Elena trusted not to panic underground. No one knew the full plan. That was deliberate. I told them only that Reservoir 9 contained something more valuable than water, and that Dorian intended to reach it before tomorrow night. The truth was larger than most people could hold without talking. I sat in the front compartment with an old service map spread across my knees. The paper had split along the folds. Half the tunnel markings were faded. Jace leaned over the seat behind me. The main entrance is impossible, he said. Dorian will have at least 100 soldiers around the excavation shaft. We are not using the main entrance. The eastern maintenance tunnel collapsed 10 years ago, partially. He looked at the map. You have been inside? I found Reservoir 9 through that tunnel. You told the council you discovered it from the western survey shaft. I lied to the council. Elena glanced at me. That is becoming one of your more attractive qualities. I pointed to a narrow blue line that crossed beneath the old highway. The tunnel begins inside a pumping station 4 miles east of Haven Ridge. The station was buried during the sand floods, but the lower access door should still exist. Should, Jace repeated. The old world was generous with redundancy. The old world also poisoned half the planet. No system is perfect. The crawler passed the place where Dorian had left me to die. The purification grass had spread far beyond the highway pillar. Green circles overlapped across the red ground. The corn kernel I had planted stood almost as high as my waist. Bean vines climbed the broken concrete. Everyone in the vehicle went quiet. Elena looked at the grass. This was bare yesterday. Yes, how long before the entire highway looks like this? I do not know. That answer should frighten me. It frightens me. She studied my face, perhaps checking whether I meant it. I did. The sanctuary had saved me, but each new function revealed a scale I could barely understand. It responded to life, poison, danger, and intention. Sometimes it acted before I gave a command. A power that grew with every contaminated mile could become more dangerous than any army, especially if I stopped questioning it. We reached the buried pumping station shortly after sunrise. Only the top of its concrete roof remained visible above the sand. A rusted ventilation tower leaned beside it. Old warning letters could still be read beneath the corrosion. Agricultural Preservation Authority. Jace saw the words. He looked at me. You knew. Not everything. Owen and his demolition workers cleared the entrance with shovels. The sand was heavy from rain, which slowed them, but it also kept the dust down. After an hour, they uncovered a steel door. No handle, no hinges. Only a dead access panel and a circular socket shaped for the silver key Dorian had taken. Elena crossed her arms. Problem? Not yet. I placed my palm against the door. The green mark warmed. Metal contamination detected. Biological residue detected. Energy transfer available. I pulled lightly. Rust peeled from the surface in black threads. Dirt vanished from the seams. The door changed from brown to dull gray. The access panel flickered. A weak green light appeared. Jace stared at it. You powered that? I removed what was killing it. The panel displayed a message in broken letters. Emergency maintenance identity required. I had used this entrance once before, but the panel had been completely dead. I had cut through the lower service hatch and crawled inside. Now the system was awake. I pressed my thumb against the scanner. No authorization. A second message appeared. Primary access key registered to Caleb Reed. Key location mismatch. Manual override available through biometric continuity. Jace whispered. It still thinks you own the reservoir. I do own it. Dorian possessed a key. That was not the same thing. The scanner released a needle. It pierced my thumb and took blood. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then locks shifted inside the wall. The door opened with a groan deep enough to shake sand from the roof. Cold air flowed out. It smelled of stone, old water, and sealed machinery. I turned to the team, lights low. No unnecessary talking. We do not know what systems Dorian has activated. We entered single file. The tunnel descended in a long spiral. White wall panels had yellowed with age. Emergency strips glowed weakly beneath our boots, powered by whatever reserve the station still held. The deeper we went, the colder it became. At the bottom, we reached a maintenance hall filled with dead consoles. I remembered crawling through this room 2 years earlier, with a hand lamp and a broken rib. I had been alone then. The reservoir had felt like a secret too large for one person. Now 50 people stood behind me. The central screen came alive as I approached. Welcome, Chief Agricultural Engineer Caleb Reed. Everyone saw it. Elena raised one eyebrow. Chief Engineer? The system made an assumption. Jace read the smaller text. Genetic archive integrity at 98%. There it was, no longer hidden. Ruth moved closer to the screen. Genetic archive? I looked at the team. The reservoir is part of a pre-war agricultural preservation complex. Beneath the water is a sealed seed and livestock gene bank. No one spoke. May's lips parted. How many seeds? I do not know, the console answered. Plant genome collections, 84,612. Viable seed lines, 12,940. Animal embryo lines, 3,108. Microbial soil cultures, 211,000. Ruth sat down hard on the floor. Owen removed his hat. Jace stared at the screen as if it were showing the dead returned to life. Elena was the first to recover. And Dorian is drilling into it. Yes. Why? He probably thinks the lower vault contains another water reserve or old technology. Can the key tell him? The key opens the command level. It does not teach him how to read it. That has never stopped him from breaking something. A warning flashed across the screen. Unauthorized excavation detected. Archive shell stress, 14%. Estimated breach. 31 hours. The sanctuary had given me 48. Dorian was moving faster. I opened the facility map. The reservoir occupied the center of the complex, a vast underground basin surrounded by maintenance rings. The gene archive lay below it, protected by 3 shells. Dorian's excavation equipment was cutting through the western ceiling. Our tunnel connected to the eastern control level. We could reach the archive before him. But we could not remove 84,000 collections by hand. I asked the system for emergency evacuation options. 2 appeared. Transfer archive to approved mobile vault. No mobile vault detected. Release archive into agricultural restoration network. Network offline. The sanctuary gate opened in my mind. A mobile vault. Living storage. Perhaps the sanctuary could take everything. But to reach the archive, I needed to unlock the lower shell. Primary key required. Dorian had it. Elena saw the problem on my face. What? I need the silver key. Then we take it. He will be inside the Western Command Hall. With how many soldiers? Enough. Jace studied the map. There is a security passage from the control level to the excavation shaft, sealed. I worked facility maintenance before Haven Ridge promoted me. Old security doors share pressure controls. If Owen overloads the ventilation chamber, we could force the passage open. Force is a generous word. Explosion? Explosion is an honest word. Elena looked at me. That gives us a route to Dorian. It also warns him we are here. He already knows you are alive. He does not know where. A sound came from the tunnel behind us. One metallic click, then another. Everyone turned. The emergency lights went red. Jace raised his rifle. The main entrance door slammed shut far above. A voice filled the corridor. Caleb Mara. Her voice came through the facility speakers. Every muscle in my body went still. Elena whispered, "She is here," Mara continued. "I wondered whether you would remember the eastern entrance." I stepped toward the console. The screen had locked. A black sun emblem replaced the archive map. Dorian had control of the network. "How did you know?" I asked. My voice carried through the room. Mara laughed softly. "You always lied badly." She was wrong. I had lied well enough for 2 years. Someone else had told her. I looked at the team. The former Haven Ridge soldiers shifted uneasily. Jace met my eyes. Not him. I believed that perhaps belief was dangerous. But the sanctuary had named his bond. Whatever that meant, it had not warned me of betrayal, Mara said. "You chose the eastern survey shaft because the soil samples there were cleaner. You came home with white mineral dust on your boots." I asked where you had been. I remembered, 2 years earlier, she had been sitting in my workshop, drinking cactus tea. I told her I had inspected a condenser line. She had smiled. I had mistaken curiosity for affection. You knew about the facility, I said. I knew you had found something. Dorian found the rest. The black sun vanished from the screen. A camera feed appeared. Mara stood in the Western Command Hall wearing a gray council coat. Dorian was beside her. Soldiers filled the room behind them. The silver key hung from a chain around his neck. He had expected me to come. Worse, he had let me open the eastern entrance because he could not. My blood authorization had powered the system and restored control paths he needed. I had walked into his trap. Dorian leaned toward the camera. Thank you, Caleb. The archive shell warning changed. Stress rose from 14% to 22%. Excavation systems accelerated. Jace stepped toward the console. Shut it down, I cannot. The screen displayed a new message. Primary key command active. Chief engineer authority suspended. Dorian smiled. You were always good at opening doors. The tunnel shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. He had redirected power from the eastern systems to his drills. The emergency lights dimmed. Elena said we leave, the main entrance remained sealed. Owen checked the wall controls. No power. Mara's face filled the screen. Caleb, listen to me. Dorian does not want to kill everyone in that room. Elena lifted her rifle toward the camera. How generous. Mara ignored her. Give him access to the green field. The sanctuary. They knew more than I had thought. How, I asked. Silas described what happened. Jace brought the plant sample into Haven Ridge. We tested it. Jace's face hardened. I never gave it to you, no. We took it from your locker. Dorian held up a sealed glass tube. Inside was the purification grass. Its leaves had turned pale. We exposed it to refinery waste, he said. It cleaned the sample. Then it died. Because you cut it from living soil. Then you will teach us how to keep it alive. No. Dorian looked almost disappointed. I hope dying once had improved your judgment. The corridor shook again. A crack appeared across the ceiling panel. The archive stress reached 27%. If the shell failed, water from Reservoir 9 would pour into the vault. Even sealed capsules might survive the first impact, but Dorian's drilling equipment could crush entire sections. I had less than 30 hours, perhaps less than one. Dorian spoke. Open the sanctuary to us, and I stop the excavation. You will enter it and take everything. I will administer it. You mean ration it. Civilization requires control. Civilization existed before you, and it ended. He touched the silver key. I will not repeat its weakness. The screen shifted to another camera. Cinder Camp. My stomach dropped. The view came from a high ridge north of the settlement. The new trees and fields spread below. People moved between them. A line of Haven Ridge vehicles waited beyond the western boundary. Not Dorian's main force. Another force, at least 8 crawlers. A fuel cannon pointed toward the trees. Elena stepped closer to the screen. No, Dorian said. My 2nd battalion reached your settlement an hour ago. The camera zoomed. Tessa stood near the spring with Ruth's younger brother. The children did not know an army watched them. Mara said, you left them almost undefended. We had taken 50 of the strongest. The camp still had guards, but not enough to survive 8 crawlers. I had built the first trap. Dorian had built the second. He knew I would choose the archive. He also knew I would not abandon the people. For the first time since the sanctuary awakened, I saw no clean move. If I surrendered the sanctuary, Dorian controlled the only land capable of restoring the world. If I refused, he burned Cinder Camp. If I stayed underground, the archive died. If I returned, he reached the gene bank first. The sanctuary mission changed. Critical setback detected. Settlement destruction probability, 86%. Archive destruction probability, 71%. A new warning appeared. Owner stress exceeding safe threshold. I almost laughed. The sanctuary was concerned about my stress. Elena grabbed my shoulder. Send me back. The entrance is sealed. The green gate. I tried to summon it. Nothing happened. Sanctuary gate unavailable inside protected pre-war facility. Of course. The facility's shielding blocked external manifestation. Jay said, there is another exit. He pointed at the map from memory. Waste filtration channel. It runs east and surfaces near the dry canal. Flooded, I said. Not if Dorian pulled water toward the excavation side. Owen checked the pressure gauge. He did. Elena looked at me. We split. I hated the idea immediately. You take 20 people through the filtration channel, she said. Return to Cinder Camp. And you? I take the rest through the security passage. We get the key. No, you cannot be in 2 places. I can solve this. You have 6 minutes before Dorian realizes we are not negotiating. I said I can solve it. Elena stepped closer until no one else could hear her. Caleb, this is the part where men like you become men like him. I stared at her. You decide only you can fix everything. Then you call every sacrifice necessary. That is not what I am doing. Then trust someone. The words cut deeper than they should have. Trust had put me in the wasteland. Trust had given Mara the chance to betray me. Trust had let my repair crew stand aside while Dorian broke my leg. But distrust would destroy the kingdom before it grew. One loyal secondary character. The sanctuary had named Jace. Elena had never needed a system to prove herself. I looked at the team. They were waiting not for a miracle, for a decision. I pulled the vital spring cup from my belt and handed it to Elena. It can heal injuries. One swallow each, do not waste it. 20 people, 25. Take Jace, he objected immediately. You need me for the security doors, Owen knows enough. Owen said, that is a violent exaggeration. You will learn quickly. Jace stepped closer. Caleb. Cinder Camp needs mechanics if the walls fall. Elena needs someone who knows Haven Ridge vehicle weaknesses. He understood. He did not like it. Good. Neither did I divided the team. Elena, Jace, May, 10 former soldiers, and 12 hunters would take the filtration channel. I kept Owen, Ruth, 6 mechanics, 2 demolition workers, and the remaining 14 fighters. Before Elena left, she caught my arm. You get the seeds, you save the people. Then we meet at home. Home. The word struck me harder than Mara's voice. Cinder Camp had become home in less than 2 days. Elena disappeared into the eastern passage. Jace followed last. He looked, I will earn it. You already started. Then the door closed between us. The screen still showed Dorian. He had waited patiently. Finished dividing your people? Yes, good. Smaller groups surrender faster. I looked at the silver key around his neck. Open the security passage. He smiled. Why would I do that? Because you want the sanctuary. I do. You cannot take it from my corpse. Mara's expression changed slightly. Dorian noticed. He touched the key. The western security passage unlocked. Somewhere beyond the wall, heavy bolts withdrew. Owen whispered, that was easy. No, I said, that was expensive. Dorian believed he had forced me to choose. He believed I was coming to negotiate while his 2nd Battalion destroyed Cinder Camp. He believed Mara still controlled the part of me that remembered raising her. All 3 beliefs were useful. We entered the security passage. It was narrow, lined with pipes and pressure doors. The floor vibrated beneath the excavation drills. I kept the sanctuary interface open. The facility blocked the gate. It blocked manifestation. But it did not block living storage. I tested it with a loose wrench. The wrench vanished into storage. Good. The archive could still be transferred if I reached it. We moved quickly. At the first junction, Owen attached a charge to the wall behind us. What is that for? Ruth asked. To make retreat emotionally difficult. The explosion collapsed the passage. Dorian would hear it. He would assume panic. At the second junction, we found 2 Haven Ridge soldiers waiting. They raised rifles. Our former soldiers fired first. One enemy fell. The other surrendered. I recognized him as a young gate guard named Parker Lowe. He could not have been older than 19. Where is Dorian? I asked. 32. Mara? With him. Archive access? Drill reaches the first shell in 15 minutes. 15. The warning had become a countdown. I took Parker's rifle and sent him back toward the blocked passage with his hands tied. Ruth said, he cannot get out. He can if he knows the maintenance vents. Parker looked at me. I cut the rope around one wrist. Choose carefully, we continued. The next chamber overlooked Reservoir 9. I had seen it before, but never under full power. The underground lake stretched beyond the reach of our lights. Steel columns descended into black water. Excavation platforms hung from the western ceiling. Drills cut downward through the central structure, throwing sparks across the cavern. Hundreds of workers moved along the platforms. Not soldiers. Debt laborers. Dorian had brought civilians. If we destroyed the machinery recklessly, they died. Owen saw the same thing. That complicates honesty. A bridge crossed the reservoir toward the command hall. No cover. Dorian's soldiers waited at the far end. Mara stood behind the glass walls above them. She saw me. For a moment, everything else vanished. She looked exactly as she had on the crawler. Green scarf. Dark hair. Steady, my sister. Then she lifted one hand and gave the order. The soldiers opened fire. We dropped behind the bridge supports. Bullets struck steel. One mechanic screamed. A round had entered his thigh. Ruth dragged him back and poured vital spring water over the wound. The flesh closed around the bullet, forcing it out with a wet pop. Everyone stared. Later I studied the bridge. 40 yards. No cover after the first support. We could not cross under fire. The sanctuary interface flashed. Archive shell stress. 49%. Estimated breach. 9 minutes. The drills accelerated. Dorian intended to destroy the vault before letting me take it. He had stopped pretending. I looked down at Reservoir 9 water. Millions of gallons. The sanctuary could transfer contaminated matter. Could it transfer clean water? I placed my hand against the bridge floor. Freshwater source detected. Transfer available. Destination required. Living storage, sanctuary stream. My external quickened. I selected sanctuary stream. The reservoir shuddered. Water began to vanish, not from the surface evenly. A whirlpool formed beneath the western excavation platforms, workers shouted. The drills tilted as the water level dropped. Dorian's soldiers stopped firing long enough to look down. I rose. We crossed the bridge. Gunfire resumed. Owen's team returned fire. The water sank faster. Steel supports emerged from the lake. Old maintenance stairs appeared along the walls. The excavation platforms descended unexpectedly as their buoyancy systems failed. Dorian shouted through the command hall speakers. "What are you doing?" "Taking back my reservoir." The water poured into the sanctuary. I felt the stream expand into a river. Lakes formed beyond the orchard. Life energy rose. Not from poison, from abundance. The sanctuary core responded like a starving thing given rain. The bridge trembled. Roots of green light appeared beneath its metal surface. The facility shielding tried to suppress them. The sanctuary pushed back, warning. Protected structure conflict. Core damage possible. I ignored it. We reached the far end. Owen threw a charge. The command hall doors exploded inward. Smoke filled the chamber. We entered behind it. Dorian's soldiers fired blindly. Our people answered. Glass shattered. Consoles sparked. I moved through the smoke toward the silver key. Dorian stood beside the archive controls with a pistol in one hand and Mara behind him. Not beside him, behind him. His arm locked around her throat. The pistol pressed against her temple. The same picture as before. The same choice. Mara's eyes met mine. This time she looked afraid. Perhaps it was real. Perhaps it was another performance. Dorian smiled. Stop the transfer. The reservoir level continued falling behind us. Archive stress, 62%. 6 minutes, I raised my empty hands. You said she was your partner. She is useful. Mara's face twisted. Dorian, be quiet. He tightened his arm. She gasped. A bruise darkened her neck. Memory tried to drag me backward. Mara at 12, feverish in my arms. Mara at 16, waiting outside the workshop. Mara on the crawler telling me I was never strong enough. Dorian said, stop the transfer or she dies. No one moved. Owen watched me. Ruth held pressure on another wound. My people waited for a decision. This was the genuine loss. Not the archive, not Cinder Camp. The loss was the part of me that still wanted Mara to be worth saving. I looked at her. Tell me the truth. Tears filled her eyes. Caleb, please. Did you know he would leave me to die? Her mouth opened. Dorian pushed the pistol harder against her skin. Wrong question. I ignored him. Mara, she began to shake. Then she whispered, yes. Did you know he killed the repair workers? Yes. Did you help frame me? Her eyes closed. Yes. Each answer removed something. Not pain, but uncertainty died. Dorian smiled because he thought the truth had weakened me. It freed me. I lowered my hands. Mara's eyes opened. Caleb, you told me survival belonged to people willing to take what they needed. Her face collapsed. I was wrong. Yes, Dorian fired. Not at her. At me, the bullet struck my shoulder and spun me sideways. Pain exploded through my arm. My people fired. Dorian dragged Mara behind the control console. The silver key swung from his neck. I hit the floor. Blood spread beneath my hand. The sanctuary voice sounded. Owner wounded. Emergency restoration available. I refused. Not yet. Dorian tried to reach the archive activation switch. I pulled the reservoir harder. The remaining water vanished. The excavation platforms dropped. Drills tore free from their mounts and crashed into the empty basin. The entire facility shook. Archive shell stress. 70%, 4 minutes, the lower vault was exposed. A circular structure rose from the drained reservoir floor, black and immense, the gene bank. I stood despite the bullet in my shoulder. Dorian stared through the shattered glass. For the first time, he saw what lay beneath the water. Not another reservoir. A vault, a treasure. Greed changed his face. He released Mara. She fell. He ran toward the lower access lift. I reached for him, too far. The silver key struck his chest as he moved. Mara saw it. So did I. She grabbed the chain. Dorian turned and hit her. The chain snapped. Mara fell again with the key in her hand. Dorian raised his pistol. She threw the key. It crossed the ruined command hall in a silver arc. I caught it. Everything stopped. The facility recognized me. Primary access key restored. Chief Engineer Authority confirmed. Dorian's face went white. I placed the key against the central console. Cancel excavation. Seal western exits. Sealed. Unlock archive. The black vault below opened. Petal-shaped doors separated around a column of white light. Thousands of sealed capsules rose from the darkness. The sanctuary gate remained blocked, but living storage was open. I extended my hand. The first capsule vanished, then another, then 100. The vault began emptying into the sanctuary. Dorian screamed and ran toward me. Owen struck him with the stock of a rifle. Dorian fell against the console. Archive transfer, 10%. 2030. The facility shook harder. Emergency alarms filled the chamber. Structural collapse detected. Evacuate immediately. Dorian laughed from the floor. You trapped yourself. The western drilling had damaged the ceiling. Without the reservoir water supporting lower pressure, the cavern was failing. Stone broke above the bridge. The eastern passage was blocked. The western exits were sealed by my command. We had saved the archive and trapped ourselves inside its grave. The sanctuary interface flashed. Gate unavailable. Core conflict unresolved. Archive transfer. 51%. Elena was racing toward Cinder Camp. Dorian's 2nd Battalion was preparing to burn it. I had no way to reach her. The cavern ceiling cracked. A section the size of a building fell into the empty reservoir. The impact threw everyone to the floor. Mara crawled toward me. I am sorry. I looked at her. Blood covered one side of her face. Sorry could not restore the dead. It could not erase the wasteland. It could not return trust. But she had thrown me the key. One act did not absolve her. It did change what happened next. I pulled her upright. Help Ruth move the wounded. Her lips trembled. You are not forgiving me. No. Then she obeyed. Archive transfer. 70%. The ceiling continued collapsing. Dorian pushed himself up. You need me even now. Even with stone falling around him. You need Haven Ridge's equipment to escape. I looked at the black sun insignia on his armor. No, you cannot open that gate in here. He had understood more than I wanted. Perhaps Mara had told him. Perhaps Silas's report had. Dorian smiled through blood. If I die, Cinder Camp burns. My battalion has orders to fire unless I transmit a withdrawal code every hour. There was the final trap. Not a bluff. Dorian preferred systems that continued killing without him. Elena could defeat soldiers. She could not stop fuel shells from setting 20 acres of new forest on fire. Archive transfer, 84%. I grabbed Dorian by the coat. Code, he smiled. Open the sanctuary. No, then watch your kingdom burn. The ceiling split above us. White light poured through the crack from the excavation shaft. The facility voice counted down to total collapse. 5 minutes. Archive transfer. Dorian leaned close. You are still the same man I left in the dust. You will sacrifice everything to save everyone. I tightened my grip. He believed compassion was a defect. That belief had carried him farther than cruelty alone. It would also end him. I looked at the control console. Haven Ridge Military Network. Primary key authority. The reservoir system had once managed agricultural security across the region. Security included communications. I inserted the silver key again. Access Haven Ridge command channel. Dorian's smile vanished. Authorization available. Voice verification required. I dragged him toward the microphone. He fought. Owen pressed a rifle against his spine. I said, give the withdrawal code. Dorian remained silent. The countdown continued. Archive transfer, 94%. I looked at Mara. She understood before I spoke. What code does he use? You sat on the council. He changed military codes daily. Dorian smiled again. Then Jace's voice came through the console, weak, broken by static. Caleb, everyone turned. The facility had connected to an external service frequency. Jace continued. We reached Cinder Camp. Is in firing position, Elena shouted behind him. How long? Jace answered. Fuel cannon charging. Dorian laughed. Too late. I looked at the military network controls. Voice verification required. Not code entry voice, I understood. The system did not need Dorian's loyalty. Only I struck him across the mouth. He grunted. Insufficient sample, I hit his broken ribs. He cried out, voice match, 98%. Command access granted. Dorian stared at the screen. No. I held the microphone near his face and selected the last recorded order from the facility speakers. His own voice played. My 2nd Battalion reached your settlement an hour ago. The system reconstructed the pattern. Synthetic command available. I typed the withdrawal order. All Haven Ridge forces disengage from Cinder Camp immediately. Return to Western Command. This is a direct order from Commander Dorian Vale. Transmit. The message left the facility. Jace heard it, so did Elena. For 1 second, only static answered. Then a distant officer said, Command verified, battalion withdrawing. Dorian stopped breathing. Not literally. But something inside him did. His greatest weapon had been obedience. I had taken his voice. Archive transfer complete. Genetic collections secured. Mission updated. Primary objective achieved. Structural collapse, 3 minutes. The vault doors closed over emptiness. The entire genetic future of the Eastern world now rested inside my sanctuary, but we were still trapped. The facility shielding remained active. I looked at the key. Disable protective field warning. Disabling field during collapse may release radiation and biological contaminants. Do it! Dorian shouted, you will poison everyone. The sanctuary eats poison. Protective field disabled. The green mark erupted. The sanctuary gate tore open across the command hall wall. Beyond it, I saw the orchard under a blue sky. Move, I shouted. Our people carried the wounded through. Ruth went first with the mechanics. Owen forced the captured soldiers ahead. Mara stopped at the threshold. Dorian remained on the floor. Caleb. I knew what she was asking. Save him. Not because he deserved it. Because leaving him would make us what he believed everyone became under pressure. I looked at Dorian, the man who had stolen my reservoir, killed my crew, broken my leg, sent soldiers to burn children. He met my eyes without begging. He still thought pride was power. I dragged him toward the gate. He tried to pull away. I do not need your mercy. I threw him through. Mara followed. I crossed last. The gate closed as Reservoir 9 collapsed. The sound carried through the sanctuary like distant thunder. We stood in the orchard beneath falling apple blossoms. Dorian stared around him. The river carried the water he had tried to steal. Fields stretched beyond the hills. Archive capsules rested in living storage, untouched. For the first time, he understood the scale of what I possessed. His face changed. Hunger. That was worse. The sanctuary voice spoke. Hostile entity detected. Owner may expel. Owner may imprison. Owner may convert through labor covenant. Dorian heard nothing. I did. I looked toward the sanctuary boundary, where newly unlocked land waited beyond the visible hills. The public reversal would come later. At Haven Ridge, before its council, before every family Mara had lied to, before everyone Dorian ruled through thirst. For now I needed him alive. I needed the world to see him fall. I selected imprison. Roots rose from the orchard soil and wrapped around his arms. Dorian fought until they forced him to his knees. He looked up at me. You think taking Haven Ridge will be easy? No, the council will replace me. I know. Mara will betray you again, she flinched. I did not look away from him. Then she will fall with them. The sanctuary mission changed. Final trap armed, public arena identified. Haven Ridge Founders Assembly. Time remaining 36 hours. At the Founders Assembly, Dorian had planned to announce control of Reservoir 9. The entire settlement would attend. Council members, merchants, military officers, water contractors. Every person who had profited from his rule. The sanctuary displayed the next objective. Expose the reservoir conspiracy. Seize Haven Ridge Command. Reveal the Green Kingdom. Destroy the hostile leadership structure. I looked at the silver key in my hand. Then at Dorian kneeling beneath an apple tree. 36 hours. The arena had a name. The date was fixed. And this time, when Haven Ridge opened its gates, I would not enter as the mechanic they had discarded. I would enter as the man who owned their water, their commander, and the future buried beneath their feet. The Founders' Assembly began at noon beneath Haven Ridge's largest dome. By 11, every seat was filled. Council members occupied the front rows in white coats trimmed with silver thread. Water merchants sat behind them wearing polished respirators they did not need. Factory owners, military officers, debt brokers, and ration supervisors crowded the marble aisles. Above them, 3 projection screens displayed Reservoir 9's old seal beside Haven Ridge's black sun. Dorian had planned the spectacle carefully. He intended to walk onto the stage, announce a permanent end to water scarcity, and let 8,000 people cheer while he placed a leash around their throats. Instead, he entered through the western gate with roots around his wrists. I walked behind him. The first scream came from a councilwoman near the front. Then the entire dome erupted. People stood. Guards reached for rifles. The projection screens flickered as Owen seized the assembly network from the maintenance room below. Jace and the former Haven Ridge soldiers closed the main doors. Elena's team moved into the aisles, wearing no insignia except a narrow strip of green cloth tied around one arm. Mara entered last. The crowd recognized her. The noise changed. Dorian's capture shocked them. Mara's presence frightened them. She had been the council's public voice for the last 3 years. She had announced ration cuts, labor drafts, quarantine orders, and executions with the calm expression of someone reading weather reports. Now dried blood marked her cheek. The green scarf remained around her neck. I had considered asking her to remove it. I decided against it. Some objects deserved to return to the scene of the crime. Chairman Lucian Crow rose from the center seat. He was 70 years old, soft around the jaw, and dressed in ceremonial black. Gold rings covered both hands. His family had controlled Haven Ridge's ration exchange since before I was born. "What is the meaning of this?" he shouted. Dorian pulled against the roots. They tightened. The crowd saw it. A wave of whispers moved through the dome. I stepped onto the stage. No one cheered. That was fine. I had not come for approval. Crow pointed at me. "Caleb Reed is wanted for murder, sabotage, and theft of council property." The old accusation sounded smaller in the room than it had in the Wasteland. I took the microphone from its stand. "Play the repair station recording." The first screen changed. Dorian appeared beneath the old solar trench. Mara stood beside him. My repair crew knelt in the dust. The dome went silent. The recording came from a lens built into my field tool case. I had installed it years earlier after scavengers began stealing parts from work sites. Dorian's men took the case but never checked the damaged indicator light. Jace recovered it from Haven Ridge's evidence room before we left Cinder Camp. On the screen, Dorian demanded the reservoir key. My recorded voice refused. Mara asked me to surrender it. Then Dorian placed the pistol against her head. People watched me make the choice they had condemned me for. They watched me give up Reservoir 9 to save my sister. Then they watched Mara step away from the pistol and smile. The crowd reacted like one living creature. A breath, a low sound of disgust. Mara did not look at the screen. She looked at me. The cruel line came next. Her voice filled the dome. "Survival belongs to people willing to take what they need. You spent your whole life giving things away." I let the silence remain after it. Then the recording showed Dorian ordering my leg broken. The shock baton struck. I fell. He stabbed me beneath the ribs. 2 repair workers were shot while trying to help. One of them cried out for his mother. The sound echoed across the marble. Councilwoman Iris Bell covered her mouth. She had voted to declare me a murderer. Chairman Crow lowered his hand. Dorian shouted over the recording. "It proves nothing. Images can be altered." Owen switched the second screen. A chain of authentication records appeared. Original device signature. Timestamp location data. Evidence room intake. Haven Ridge security seal. Every council member could read the conclusion. The recording had remained inside their own system since the day of the attack. Someone had marked it restricted. The authorization name appeared beneath the file. Lush and Crow. The crowd turned toward the chairman. Crow's face drained. "I never saw that file." I looked at him. "Dorian used my clearance." Dorian laughed. Not loudly. Enough. Crow heard him. He finally understood that the commander had never considered him a partner. Only a seal attached to a useful hand. I said, "Play the council transmission." Mara's face appeared on the third screen. She sat in the broadcast room wearing the green scarf. Her voice was steady. "Caleb Reed was killed during a raider attack while attempting to sabotage the western condenser field. Evidence recovered from the scene confirms that Reed murdered 2 members of his own repair crew." The screen divided. On the left, Mara delivered the announcement. On the right, Dorian's soldiers entered the evidence room and placed my bloodied coat, the tool case, and a rifle beside the bodies. The rifle had my workshop registration. It had been stolen 2 weeks earlier. Jace had found the theft report deleted from the archive. Now it appeared beneath the images. The dome began to roar. People shouted questions. Families of the dead repair workers pushed toward the stage. Elena's guards held the aisles without raising weapons. Mara stepped forward. "The curd on her. Liar, murderer. My son worked for you. You sent us to the ration lines." The words struck from every direction. Mara's knees almost bent, almost. She took the microphone I offered her. Her hand shook. I knew Caleb was alive when I made that announcement. The crowd became quiet again. She swallowed. "I knew Dorian killed Marcus Hale and Peter Knoll. I helped hide the evidence. I helped accuse Caleb because Dorian promised me a permanent council seat and control of the eastern ration districts." Chairman Crow shouted, "Do not listen to her. She is speaking under coercion." Mara looked at him. "No one is coercing me." That was not entirely true. Conscience was a form of pressure. So was fear. So was the knowledge that the sanctuary roots waited beneath the marble. But the confession was hers. Mara continued. "I told myself Haven Ridge needed strong leadership. I told myself Caleb was too weak to protect what he found. The truth is simpler. I wanted what he had and I believed I deserved it." A woman in the third row threw a metal ration token. It struck Mara's shoulder. She did not move. "I helped Dorian seize Reservoir 9. I helped him redirect water from the outer settlements. I approved debt contracts tied to emergency rations. I signed relocation orders for families we knew would never complete the required labor. The projection screens filled with documents, names, dates, water quantities, labor assignments, death reports. Every signature was visible. Crow, Bell, Councilman Victor Dane, Councilwoman Celine Roth, Commander Dorian Vale, Mara Reed. Not all crimes belonged to one man. Dorian had built the machine. The council had fed it. I watched faces collapse as the documents moved across the screens. A factory owner discovered that the water shortage used to justify doubling labor shifts had been manufactured. A mother saw her daughter's name on a relocation ledger, marked deceased after transfer. A merchant learned that Dorian had sold military water reserves through a shell company, while civilians were restricted to 1 cup per day. The sums appeared in words. 12 million water credits, 400,000 gallons. 716 debt contracts, 231 recorded deaths. Those were only the confirmed numbers. The crowd no longer looked at me. They looked at the people in the front row. Chairman Crow tried to leave. The doors did not open. He turned. This assembly has no legal authority to detain the council. I held up the silver reservoir key. The council surrendered emergency authority to the holder of Reservoir 9 during water collapse conditions. Crow stared at the key. That authority belonged to Commander Vale. No, Dorian carried the key. My blood remained registered as owner. I placed the key into the assembly console. The system recognized me. Every black sun on the projection screens disappeared. A green leaf replaced it. Chief Agricultural Engineer Caleb Reed. Emergency Water Authority active. The title still felt absurd. The authority did not, I said, release Reservoir 9 ownership records. The central screen displayed the original discovery report. My survey data, my biometric claim. Then came the council's altered version. The name had been changed to Haven Ridge Defense Command. Crow's blood signature appeared beneath the modification. He sat down slowly. I looked across the dome. Reservoir 9 was never theirs. I let the key hang from my hand. They stole it. Dorian leaned toward the microphone stand. And now you will steal Haven Ridge. His voice cut through the noise. People turned. Dorian stood straight despite the roots around his wrists. His coat was torn, but his expression had recovered its old calm. That was his talent. He could stand inside a collapsing lie and speak as if everyone else were confused. You heard him, Dorian said. Emergency authority. Locked doors. Armed soldiers in the aisles. He did not come to free you. He came to replace us. Some people listened. Fear always searched for the nearest shape. Dorian gave it mine. He has an unknown biological power, he continued. He created armed vines. He drained Reservoir 9. He brought contaminated plants into Haven Ridge. Ask yourself what happens when one man controls every seed, every field, and every drop of water. The crowd shifted. Not much. Enough. Dorian saw it and pushed harder. He calls it a kingdom. That word spread through the dome. Kingdom, not settlement, not farm. Kingdom implied a throne, a ruler, obedience. He looked at me. Tell them I am lying. I could have denied it. Instead, I said, I am building a kingdom. The dome erupted again. Elena looked at me from the aisle. She did not appear surprised. Mara closed her eyes. Dorian smiled. He believed I had made his argument for him. I continued. A kingdom where children eat before officers. Where water is not sold back to the people who repair the pumps. Where no council can sign a family into permanent labor because they missed one ration payment. The noise faded. A kingdom with fields outside sealed glass. Orchards no commander can hide beneath a military key. Soil that cleans poison instead of passing it into your blood. I looked at the screens. Show them. The images changed. Cinder Camp appeared from the northern ridge, not the surveillance image Dorian had used. The settlement as it stood that morning. 20 acres of green land, white-trunked trees. Corn rows, bean fields, spring. Children carrying apples. Tessa stood beneath a cloud, laughing as rain fell into her open mouth. People in the assembly rose from their seats. Some had never seen rain. Some had never seen a living tree. One old woman reached toward the screen. Dorian's smile vanished. Owen switched to a live feed. Elena had placed cameras around the restoration zone before we left. The images showed workers repairing captured crawlers beneath green branches. Former Haven Ridge soldiers dug irrigation channels beside Cinder Camp hunters. Ruth opened one of the archive seed cases in the sanctuary orchard. Then came the river. Reservoir 9's water flowed through the sanctuary beneath a blue sky. The crowd stared. I said, the water was not destroyed. Dorian shouted. To a place only he controls. Yes, the admission struck the room. I did not hide from it. For now, I turned toward the assembly. Reservoir 9 contained a pre-war agricultural archive, more than 84,000 plant genome collections, nearly 13,000 viable seed lines, More than 3,000 animal embryo lines. Dorian's excavation was minutes from destroying them. The archive transfer log filled the screens. Every collection accounted for, every seal intact. Those resources will not belong to me permanently. They will belong to every settlement that signs the Green Covenant. Chairman Crow found his voice. What covenant? Owen displayed the document. It contained 5 laws. No person could own a natural water source. No child could inherit labor debt. No settlement could withhold food or medicine to force political obedience. Any community receiving sanctuary seed had to return part of each harvest to the shared archive. Any leader who diverted common resources for private control lost access to all green territory. The council members read the last line carefully. They understood what it meant. Their wealth depended on scarcity. The covenant ended scarcity as a weapon. Dorian laughed. You think paper changes human nature? No. I looked at the roots holding him. Consequences do. A man in the rear shouted, "What happens to Haven Ridge?" Others joined him. Do we lose water? Are the fields safe? Who controls the ration lines? I answered one question at a time. Reservoir 9's original basin had collapsed, but its water remained secure. The western condenser field would be restored. Sanctuary crops had passed every contamination test available in the facility. Current rations would remain in place for 3 days while distribution records were audited. Then I said the thing Dorian feared most. Beginning tomorrow, water is free. For 1 second, no one reacted. The sentence was too strange. Then someone laughed. Another person cried. The dome, people shouted. Hands struck the backs of seats. Workers embraced strangers. Water merchants stood frozen while the value of their contracts vanished. Dorian pulled against the roots. You cannot sustain that. I can. You will empty your reservoir. It refills. You will destroy the labor system. Yes, factories will stop. Then they will pay workers instead of buying their thirst. His face changed. The calm broke. You ungrateful fool. Do you know what it takes to keep 8,000 people obedient? There it was. Not alive. Obedient. The word passed through the dome like flame through dry grass. Dorian heard himself too late. The crowd turned on him. He tried to recover. I meant organized. I stepped closer. No, you meant obedient. The first stone came from a factory worker. It struck Dorian's chest. Then a ration token hit his face. Then other Elena's people held the crowd back. Not to protect his dignity, to preserve the trial. Dorian looked at the council. Order your guards to act. No one moved. He looked at Crow. The chairman stared at the floor. Dorian looked at Mara. She met his eyes. You promised me control, she said. I gave you everything. You gave me a seat beside a grave, he sneered. You climbed into it willingly. Mara flinched, but she did not deny it. Dorian turned back to me. This changes nothing. Haven Ridge needs a military command. Not yours. You have no army. The main doors opened. Hundreds of Haven Ridge soldiers stood outside. Dorian smiled. Then he saw their weapons. Barrels pointed downward. Black Sun insignias had been removed from their armor. Jace entered first. His old limp was more visible after the march. But he walked without hesitation. Behind him came captains, mechanics, gate guards, and patrol officers. Not everyone had defected. Enough had Jace climbed the stage. He faced Dorian. Western Battalion surrendered command. Dorian stared at him. You are a repairman. You swore an oath to protect Haven Ridge. I am Haven Ridge. Jace shook his head. No. The crowd roared. Dorian lunged. The roots allowed one step. Only one. He reached for Jace's throat. I caught his arm. For a moment, we stood as we had beneath the solar trench. He was close enough for me to smell cedar oil beneath the blood and dust. The man who had left me in the wasteland. The man who believed ownership came from force. His eyes moved to the silver key, then to the green leaf on the screens, then to the crowd that no longer feared him. I remembered his words over my broken body. You built a fine system. Pity you never understood ownership. I leaned close enough that only he could hear. You were right about one thing. His jaw tightened. You never understood ownership. I straightened. The screens changed again. Owen displayed Dorian's Shell Company records. Military water sold through private brokers. Fuel contracts diverted to his personal accounts. Weapons purchased in the names of dead soldiers. A hidden estate beyond the northern ridge. One final file opened. Succession directive. In the event of council collapse, Commander Dorian Vale would assume permanent executive control. The signatures beneath it belonged to Crow, Bell, Dane, Roth, and Mara. The document was dated 6 months earlier. Dorian had planned the crisis before I discovered Reservoir 9. He had reduced condenser maintenance, redirected replacement parts, allowed outer settlements to fail. The reservoir was not the beginning of his plan. It was the final piece. The assembly saw everything. Chairman Crow sank to his knees. Councilwoman Bell began to sob. Victor Dane tried to tear the ceremonial trim from his coat as if cloth had committed the crime. Celine Roth stared at the exit. It remained guarded. Dorian did not look at them. He looked at me. You think public shame is power? No. I turned toward the crowd. Remove the council insignias. Jace's soldiers stepped forward. They took the silver cords from every council member. Crow resisted until Elena pressed his hand against the evidence screen, showing his authorization marks. The cords fell onto the marble, one after another. Then came the black sun emblems. Soldiers removed them from their own armor and dropped them beside the council insignias. Metal struck stone in a long, uneven rain. The sound became louder than cheering. Dorian watched the symbol of his command collect at my feet. Color left his face. Mara stood beside the pile. She reached for the green scarf. Her fingers paused. Then she untied it and placed it on top of the black sun emblems. The object I had given her on her 18th birthday lay among the remains of the system she chose over me. She looked at me. I do not expect forgiveness. Good. What happens to me? You stand trial with the others. The answer hurt her. It should have. Dorian laughed once. You save her from the wasteland and call it justice. I am not saving her. I looked at the families of Marcus Hale and Peter Knoll. I am letting the dead have witnesses. The roots dragged Dorian to the center of the stage. His knees struck the marble. The sound carried through the microphone. Exactly where he had intended to stand as Haven Ridge's savior, he knelt before the people he had starved. Crow knelt beside him. Then Bell, Dane, Roth. Mara remained standing until Elena touched her shoulder. She lowered herself beside the others. 5 council members. 1 commander, 1 sister. The crowd watched. I did not enjoy it as much as I had imagined beneath the highway pillar. Revenge was clean in memory. Reality had faces. Some guilty, some once loved. But pain did not erase consequence. I took the council seal from Crow's desk and broke it against the edge of the podium. The first half struck the marble. The second landed beside Dorian's knee. Effective immediately, the Haven Ridge Council is dissolved. The dome shook with the response. I raised one hand. The noise slowly faded. Haven Ridge will join Cinder Camp under the Green Covenant. A temporary assembly will be chosen from mechanics, growers, medical workers, teachers, guards, and residents of the outer camps. Water merchants began shouting. I ignored them. Every debt contract tied to water, food, or emergency medicine is canceled. That brought the loudest reaction yet. People tore paper bracelets from their wrists. Factory workers ripped debt tags from their coats. A woman lifted her sleeping child above the crowd and screamed until her voice broke. Dorian's shoulders lowered. Not from shame, from calculation. He had lost the stage. The council, the army, the water. But his eyes were still searching. That warned me. A defeated man looked backward. Dorian kept looking toward the western screen. I followed his gaze. The live feed from Cinder Camp had changed. Static crossed the image. The orchard camera tilted. Then it fell. The crowd did not notice. I did. Elena noticed a second later. Her hand moved to her radio. Cinder Camp report. Only Static answered. Jace checked the military channel. Nothing. The projection image cleared for 1 second. A figure stood beside the sanctuary gate. Tall, wrapped in a white environmental suit, not Haven Ridge armor. The suit carried a symbol I had never seen in person. A silver circle divided by 3 black lines. Elena went pale. What is that? Jace knew. His voice dropped. Helix Dominion. The name moved through the officers around him, not through the crowd. Most civilians had only heard rumors. I had heard more. The Helix Dominion controlled the northern laboratories, the remaining aircraft, and at least 4 pre-war weapons sites. They traded medicine for children with rare genetic markers. They burned settlements that refused blood testing. Dorian smiled from his knees, small, satisfied. I grabbed his coat. What did you do? He looked up at me. You thought I came to Reservoir 9 without insurance? The western screen changed. The stranger in the white suit stood directly before the camera. Its mirrored faceplate reflected Cinder Camp's green trees. A voice came through the assembly speakers. Filtered. Chief Agricultural Engineer Caleb Reed. The dome fell silent. We have confirmed recovery of Preservation Archive 9. My hand tightened on Dorian's coat. The stranger continued. Under continuity law, all genetic materials, adaptive organisms, and associated biological anomalies are property of the Helix Dominion. Behind the figure, shapes moved through the orchard. Soldiers in white armor, dozens, perhaps more. A metallic frame rose above the trees. Not a crawler. A walking machine with 4 jointed legs and a cannon mounted beneath its body. Cinder Camp's defenders lay disarmed near the spring. Tessa was among them. A white armored soldier held her by the shoulder. Elena made a sound I had never heard from her. The filtered voice continued, "Surrender the sanctuary and the archive within 6 hours." The figure placed one gloved hand against the green gate. The gate flickered. The sanctuary screamed inside my mind. External breach attempt detected. Unknown genetic authority, core access contested. I released Dorian. He fell onto the marble. He looked up at me with blood on his teeth. "The council was never the largest enemy," he whispered. On the screen, the white-suited figure turned slightly. Behind its mirrored mask, something green began to glow, the same shade as the mark over my heart. Then the sanctuary voice said the words that emptied every victory from the room. Secondary owner signature detected. The sanctuary did not speak again. It did not need to. The second owner signature pulsed through me like another heartbeat, not beside mine, against it. For the first time since the green mark awakened, the sanctuary felt divided. The white-suited figure at Cinder Camp pressed one hand harder against the gate. Green light spread through the mirrored glove. The orchard trees bent toward him as if dragged by a wind no one else could feel. The sanctuary boundary flickered. Fields vanished and returned. The river stuttered. Apple blossoms froze in the air. Then every screen in the Founders' Assembly went black. The dome fell silent. Elena raised her radio again. "Cinder Camp. Static, Tessa, nothing." Her hand tightened until the casing cracked. I closed my eyes and reached inward. The sanctuary appeared around me without taking my body. Not the meadow, not the orchard, a place beneath both. Roots of light stretched through darkness. Every field, stream, seed, tree, and living thing connected to the white core tree at the center. My owner mark glowed on one side of the trunk. A second mark burned on the other. Identical leaf, different root. The sanctuary voice returned. Broken by interference, owner conflict, primary lineage. Secondary lineage. Unknown. Authority comparison incomplete. Archive key detected in both signatures. That was impossible. I had carried the mark since birth. No one else had ever touched the sanctuary before me. Unless the sanctuary had existed before I awakened it. Unless someone had been waiting for it. A memory surfaced. My mother kneeling beside my childhood bed. Her finger tracing the green leaf over my heart. Not a blessing, she had said once. A promise. I had forgotten the rest. The white-suited figure had not come for a discovery. He had come for an inheritance. I opened my eyes. Dorian still knelt on the stage. His smile had faded. He saw something in my face and understood that the threat was larger than his own betrayal. "What is Helix?" I asked. Chairman Crow answered before Dorian could. "A continuity authority." His voice shook. After the war, several pre-war research groups declared themselves custodians of surviving genetic material. Helix was one of them. One? Crow looked toward the dead screens. "The strongest one." Dorian said, "They control the northern weather stations, aircraft depots, and gene laboratories. I informed them that Reservoir 9 might contain preserved material. Before you left me in the Wasteland?" "Yes." The answer came without shame. "You sold them the archive. I negotiated recognition." Elena turned on him. "You traded every living seed in the East for a title." Dorian looked at her as if titles were the only sensible currency. "They promised military support. They are holding a child. They hold leverage." Elena moved. Jace caught her before she reached him. Dorian did not flinch. He should have. I stepped close. "What did Helix promise you?" "Governorship of the Eastern Territories." The words struck the room with almost comic smallness. Everything he had done, every ration cut, every body, every betrayal, for a chair beneath someone else's table. I crouched until our faces were level. "You were never building a kingdom." His eyes narrowed. "You were applying for employment." The crowd laughed, not loudly, cruelly. Dorian's face hardened. The cruel line I had carried since the solar trench returned fully formed. He had told me I never understood ownership. Now he knelt beneath a symbol he did not own, inside a settlement that had rejected him, waiting for foreign masters who had already seized the prize he promised them. I stood. "Put every council member in the lower holding cells." Jace's soldiers moved. Crow began protesting. Bell cried. Dane demanded legal review. Roth said nothing. Mara rose when ordered and offered her hands for restraint. Dorian remained on his knees. The roots tightened. "I am taking him with me," I said. Elena looked toward the blank screens. "To Cinder Camp?" "Yes. He wants us there. Not us." I looked at the assembly. All of Haven Ridge. Confusion spread. Then understanding. The sanctuary gate beneath the Western District was still linked to the orchard. If Helix could contest it, closing the gate might trap Cinder Camp under their control. But opening it wider could also give the people of Haven Ridge a path into the sanctuary, or give Helix a path out. That was the risk. The sanctuary had named an owner conflict. Ownership was not decided by blood alone. Everything the system had rewarded since awakening pointed to another measure: settlement, loyalty, growth, life. The second owner might possess lineage. I possessed a kingdom. I raised the microphone. Helix has seized Cinder Camp and is attempting to take the sanctuary. People murmured. I continued. The sanctuary is the source of the new fields, the restored water, and the archive you just saw. It recognizes me as an owner. It recognizes the Helix commander as another. Fear moved through the dome. I did not soften the truth. If Helix takes control, water will not remain free. The archive will disappear into northern laboratories. Every person with a useful genetic marker will become property under continuity law. A medical worker shouted, "How do you know?" Chairman Crow answered from the aisle, "Because that is what Helix law says." The crowd turned toward him. He lowered his eyes. They classify human populations as preservation assets. Silence. No one needed the phrase translated. I looked across the assembly. Cinder Camp has fewer than 300 people. Helix brought soldiers and a war machine. They expect one settlement to surrender. I let the next words land. They did not expect 9,000. The dome erupted. Not with celebration. With decision, factory workers stood first, then mechanics, then medical staff. Former debt laborers tore the last tags from their clothes and moved toward the exits. The temporary assembly formed itself before I could appoint it. Owen appeared on the screens again. He had restored local control. A map of Haven Ridge replaced the black image. I pointed to the Western Cargo District. Open every transport bay. Load food, medical supplies, tools, and water containers. No private hoarding. Children and elderly move through the gate first. Elena said, "You are evacuating Haven Ridge?" No. I looked toward the western gate marker. I am mobilizing it. The city moved faster than the council ever had. Years of scarcity had trained everyone to carry, repair, queue, and ration. Freed from deliberate obstruction, those skills became force. Within an hour, lines stretched from the Founders Dome to the Western Cargo District. People carried blankets, toolboxes, cooking pots, medical cases, seeds from rooftop gardens, old family photographs. Some brought nothing but water cups and anger. The sanctuary gate stood inside a freight hangar. Green light filled its arch. It flickered violently. On the other side, white armored soldiers moved between the orchard trees. The moment the first Haven Ridge guard approached, a Helix voice came through. Entry prohibited. The guard looked at me. I stepped forward with Dorian bound behind me. Elena stood on my right, Jace on my left. Mara remained in the holding cells with the council. That choice had been mine. She had helped recover the key. She had confessed. She had still betrayed the dead. One good act did not purchase escape from judgment. Dorian looked through the gate. The Helix soldiers saw him. No one saluted. That hurt him more than the roots. A white armored officer raised a rifle. Caleb Reed. Surrender access authority. I entered the gate. Elena cursed and followed. Jace came through behind us, dragging Dorian. The orchard air smelled wrong. Metal ozone, burned leaves. Helix equipment surrounded the gate. Black pylons had been driven into sanctuary soil. Green energy flowed from the roots into cables leading toward the four-legged war machine. The machine stood over the spring. Its cannon pointed at the gathered residents of Cinder Camp. Tessa knelt in the front row. A soldier held her shoulder. The white-suited commander waited beside the core tree. Up close, his armor was not white. It was bone-colored. Layers of ceramic plating overlapped across his body. Tubes ran from his spine into the soil. The mirrored mask reflected me. He removed it. He was perhaps 50. Pale gray eyes, silver hair darker than Dorian's, and a green leaf mark over his left temple. "My name is Adrian Voss," he said, "Director of Helix Biological Continuity." His voice was the same filtered voice from the screen, but without the mask it sounded tired, not weak, old. He looked at me with something close to recognition. "Caleb Reed, you know my name. I knew your mother." The orchard vanished around me for 1 second. What? Evelyn Reed was Chief Integration Biologist for the Green Arc program. My mother had been a clinic technician. That was what she told us. That was what Haven Ridge records said. Adrian touched the mark at his temple. "We were both selected as biological custodians. Both, your mother and I." He looked at the core tree. The sanctuary was not designed for one owner. It was designed for a paired command, growth and continuity, expansion and preservation. "Which are you, preservation? Then why are your soldiers holding children?" His expression did not change, because uncontrolled growth destroys what it claims to save. He gestured toward the sanctuary. "You activated an incomplete biological domain without training. You absorbed radiation, altered external soil, moved an entire reservoir. and integrated an archive containing more than 200,000 microbial cultures. His voice sharpened. You could release an invasive organism capable of consuming the continent. The warning was not entirely false. That made him more dangerous. A liar could be exposed. A man carrying one half of the truth could build an empire with it. You attacked Cinder Camp, I said. I contained it. You threatened to kill them. I prevented resistance while the authority dispute was resolved. Tessa looked at me. Her face was dirty. Her eyes were steady. I looked back at Adrian. You speak like Dorian. Dorian flinched. Adrian barely glanced at him. Commander Vale was useful for locating the archive. Dorian's face emptied. There it was. No governorship. No recognition. Useful. I looked at him. He understood at last that Helix had never intended to honor the agreement. Adrian continued. Your mother fled the program before the final integration. She stole one primary lineage embryo. I felt the world narrow. Me, yes. She was my mother. She carried you and raised you. Both statements can be true. What was I made for? To inherit expansion authority when the sanctuary awakened. Made. The word tasted wrong. Adrian studied me. You were engineered for compatibility. Behind me, Haven Ridge citizens began crossing the gate. Helix soldiers raised weapons. I lifted one hand. My people stopped. Adrian looked past me at the growing crowd. This is exactly the instability your mother feared. My mother ran from you. She ran from responsibility. Maybe she understood it better. For the first time, anger moved across his face. Evelyn believed the sanctuary should belong to ordinary settlements. She wanted decentralized access, shared authority, local cultivation. She was right. She was sentimental. Dorian laughed once from behind us. Adrian looked at him. Why is he here? So he can hear this. I turned to Dorian. The Helix Dominion does not recognize your governorship, Adrian said. No such agreement was approved. Dorian stared at him. I gave you Reservoir 9. I mobilized Haven Ridge. You damaged the archive. You promised me the East. Adrian's expression remained empty. You misunderstood preliminary language. The final color left Dorian's face. He had used those same tactics on outer settlements. Relocation review. Water amnesty. Words shaped like promises with nothing inside. Now he heard them from above. I leaned close. You told me survival belonged to people who take what they need. That had been Mara's line, but Dorian had built his life around it. I looked toward Adrian. He took you. Dorian lunged. Not at me, at Adrian. The roots around his wrists snapped tight and threw him down. Helix soldiers aimed rifles. Adrian did not move. Dorian struck the soil on both knees. The same man had knelt on marble less than 2 hours earlier. Now he knelt beneath the sanctuary tree before the master he had tried to impress. I let the moment remain. Then I faced Adrian. You have lineage authority. I have settlement authority. His eyes narrowed. You read the conflict interface. I lived it. The sanctuary voice returned. Authority comparison available. Preservation lineage. Verified. Verified. Living domain contribution. Adrian Voss. 12 protected archives. Caleb Reed. 2 restored settlements. Population under covenant. 9,143. Adrian heard the voice. So did I. No one else reacted. His calm fractured. The sanctuary continued. Current life energy generated through active restoration. Caleb Reed, 93%. Adrian Voss. Ownership balance calculated. Adrian stepped toward the core tree. Override population metric. Denied. Invoke founder protocol. Founder authority expired. Not fear. Disbelief. He had spent decades preserving seeds in sealed rooms. I had spent 2 days planting them among people. The sanctuary did not choose the person with the oldest claim. It chose the person creating the most life. Adrian pressed both hands to the core tree. The black pylons activated. Green light tore through the soil. The orchard shook. Ownership seizure initiated. The sanctuary screamed. Every tree bent toward the pylons. The river rose from its banks. Helix soldiers dragged Cinder Camp residents toward the war machine. Adrian looked at me. You are untrained. I will not allow one frightened mechanic to control the last biological restoration system on Earth. I touched the core tree. The second heartbeat struck mine. Pain tore through my skull. Images flooded me. Helix vaults beneath ice, children sleeping inside glass capsules. Forests reduced to genetic codes. Animals preserved as numbered embryos. Adrian standing alone while decades passed. He had saved thousands of species. He had also forgotten why they mattered. No birds flew in his forests. No children picked fruit. Nothing lived unless he permitted it. Preservation without life was only a beautiful form of burial. He saw my memories, too. Tessa biting the first apple, Elena dividing food. Jace carrying the stolen grass. Rain over Cinder Camp, workers tearing off debt tags. Mara throwing the silver key. Dorian kneeling. Adrian recoiled. You let them touch everything. Yes, they contaminate it. They waste seed. They plant it. They kill animals. They raise them. They make errors. So do we. The ownership force pushed harder. Blood ran from Adrian's nose. My old bullet wound reopened in my shoulder. The sanctuary core split down the center. White light poured from the crack. Core failure imminent. Paired authority resolution required. Merge, yield. Contest, Adrian said yield. The command struck through the roots. I almost fell. He had trained for this. Decades of biological interface work gave him control I did not possess. The orchard blurred. The sanctuary began folding toward him. Fields became grids, trees became numbered assets. The river narrowed into controlled channels. Cinder Camp springs stopped flowing. People cried out. The war machine's cannon charged. Adrian forced the sanctuary into the shape of Helix. Order. Seals. Permission. I could not overpower him with training. I had none. I could not overpower him with lineage. We were equal. So I used the one thing he did not understand. I opened the gate completely. Every restriction. Every threshold. Every person waiting in Haven Ridge felt the sanctuary. Not as a command interface. As an invitation enter. The freight hangar emptied. Thousands crossed. Mechanics, children. Factory workers, doctors, teachers. Former debt laborers. Old people carried through by neighbors. They poured into the orchard, the fields, the riverbanks, and the open grass. Helix soldiers tried to contain them. There were too many. No one attacked at first. They planted Ruth and May open seed cases. Children pushed beans into soil. Owen handed out shovels. Jace organized teams around the pylons. Elena walked to Tessa, disarmed the soldier holding her, and broke his nose with one strike. Then Cinder Camp rose. The settlement population crossed the sanctuary boundary. Life energy exploded. The core tree repaired itself beneath my hand. Adrian gasped. Living domain contribution recalculated. Caleb Reed, 98%. Adrian Voss. 0.2%, he shouted. They are not authorized, the sanctuary answered. Life authorizes life. The pylons cracked, roots crushed their cables. The war machine fired. Its cannon launched a white sphere toward the crowd. I reached for it. The sanctuary reached with me. The sphere stopped above the orchard. Energy conversion available. Toxicity. Transfer. I smiled. Adrian understood too late. The cannon had brought fuel. I absorbed it. White fire turned green. The sanctuary expanded him. Hills rolled outward. New forests rose beyond them. The river split into 3 branches. Fields multiplied. The war machine sank as roots climbed its legs. Helix soldiers opened fire. Haven Ridge soldiers answered. The battle lasted less than a minute. Vines wrapped rifles. Grass swallowed power cells. White armor locked at the joints as living roots entered the seams. The war machine collapsed beside the spring. No one died. That mattered. Adrian remained at the core tree. His hands had fused to the bark through green light. Ownership contest concluded. Primary authority, Caleb Reed. Secondary authority revoked. Adrian screamed. The mark at his temple faded. He fell backward. I caught him before his head struck the roots. He stared up at me. For the first time, he looked old. You destroyed continuity. No. I looked across the sanctuary. Thousands of people moved through fields that had not existed that morning. Children carried archive seeds. Mechanics dismantled the war machine. Medical workers treated Helix soldiers beside Cinder Camp residents. Apple blossoms covered the ground. I changed its owner. Adrian's eyes filled with something more painful than defeat. Recognition. My vaults, he whispered. Open them, no. The sanctuary voice responded before I could. Former secondary authority assets detected. 12 protected archives. Transfer access available through covenant adoption. Adrian closed his eyes. Even stripped of ownership, he was still valuable. He knew locations, systems, species. He had spent decades preserving what remained. He deserved judgment for what Helix had done. He also possessed knowledge the world needed. I would not repeat Dorian's mistake and confuse destruction with strength. You will open every vault, I said. Adrian looked at me. And if I refuse, you will live here and watch ordinary people grow everything you locked away. That frightened him more than prison. Behind us, Dorian crawled toward the broken gate controls. Jace saw him. He started forward. I raised one hand. Dorian reached the console. He pressed his bloodied palm against it. Nothing happened. No authority, no soldiers, no council. No Helix protection. He turned. Thousands of people watched him. Mara stood at the edge of the crowd. The holding cell transport had arrived through the gate during the conflict. She wore restraints beside Crow and the others. Dorian looked at her. Help me. She did not move. He looked at Adrian. The director turned his face away. Then Dorian looked at me. At last he begged. Caleb. The name sounded different in his mouth. Not need. I walked toward him. Every step crossed something he had lost. A free river. Open fields, unarmed citizens standing without fear. Former soldiers wearing green cloth. A child eating an apple. He sank a canned experience. No, I can manage Haven Ridge. No, I know the outer factions, so do the people you raided. I can serve you. There it was. The final form of his ambition. Not leadership, proximity to power. He would kneel beneath any throne if he could still stand above someone else. I stopped in front of him. You left me in the wasteland because you thought giving was weakness. He looked up. I spoke quietly. Only he heard the first sentence. You were right that the world belongs to those willing to take what they need. Hope flickered in his eyes. Then I let the whole sanctuary hear the rest. But you never learned the difference between taking life and creating it. Roots opened beneath him. Not a grave. A transport circle. The sanctuary displayed his destination. Haven Ridge Public Tribunal. No military authority, no council privilege, no private water allocation. Dory not send me back. His fingers shook. Why? He looked toward the people. Because he knew. The wasteland had protected him through distance, uniforms, and fear. The kingdom removed all three. I pulled his hand from my coat. You wanted ownership. The transport routes tightened. Now you belong to your consequences. He vanished. The people remained silent for one breath. Then the sanctuary erupted in sound. Not cheering for me. Cheering for water. For the opened archive. For the children released from Helix custody. For the first herd embryos activated in the new restoration chambers. For the northern vault coordinates appearing on the Covenant map. For a future larger than revenge. The Helix soldiers surrendered. Some did it reluctantly. Some dropped their weapons with relief. Adrian sat beneath the core tree while Elena placed restraints on him. She looked at me. Tessa wants to know whether she can keep the war machine. No, Tessa stood on one of its broken legs. Why? Because it has a cannon. That is why I want it. Owen called from beneath the machine. I can make it agricultural. Elena stared at him. You can turn a siege walker into a plow? I can turn anything into a plow if Caleb keeps giving me impossible metal. Tessa raised both hands. Then I can keep it. I looked at the machine, at the cracked cannon, at the roots already growing over its armor. Remove every weapon, Tessa smiled. It was the first royal decree of the kingdom that mattered to her. By sunset, the sanctuary contained more than 9,000 people and enough land to feed them. By midnight, the first temporary council met beneath the apple trees. No elevated seats, no silver cords. Elena represented Cinder Camp. Jace represented maintenance and defense. Ruth represented agriculture. A doctor named Samuel Price represented medical workers. 3 residents were chosen by open vote from Haven Ridge districts. 2 seats belonged to the outer settlements. 1 seat remained empty for any Helix community willing to sign the covenant. I refused the title of king when Owen suggested it. Then Tessa called me one in front of everyone. The name spread anyway. Not because I wore a crown. I did not. Not because I sat on a throne. I sat on an overturned seed crate. They called it the Green Kingdom because kingdoms were the only stories large enough to describe what they saw. Rivers, orchards, fields. New forests rising from poison. But the covenant remained above every person, including me. No one owned natural water. No child inherited debt. No leader could weaponize food or medicine. Seeds returned to the common archive. Anyone who broke those laws lost access to green territory. The tribunal lasted 4 days. Dorian was tried publicly in the same dome where he planned to crown himself. The families of the dead spoke first, then the outer settlements, then soldiers he had ordered abandoned. Then Mara. She testified without asking for mercy. Crow and the council members were convicted of conspiracy, resource theft, forced labor, and falsification of death records. Their private water shares were dissolved. Their estates became clinics, schools, and public storage. Mara received 20 years of restoration labor under guard. She accepted the sentence. Before they took her away, she asked to speak with me. We stood beside the first purification grass I had planted beneath the highway pillar. The single blade had become a green field. She looked older, so did I. I remember what Mom said about your mark, she told me. I waited. She said it meant you would carry a garden through the end of the world. The memory returned. Not fully. Enough. Mara touched the green scarf around her neck. The tribunal had returned it as personal property. She untied it. I do not deserve this. No. She placed it at the base of the first apple tree outside the sanctuary. Then she walked toward the restoration convoy without looking back. I did not forgive her. Not then. Perhaps not ever. But I watched until the vehicle disappeared. Dorian received no labor command, no administrative role, no uniform. He was assigned to clean the outer water channels under public supervision. The work was not cruel. That was important. Cruelty would have let him call himself a victim. Instead, every day he carried water freely to the settlements he had starved. No one saluted. No one stepped aside. Children knew him only as the man who cleaned the channels. That was his complete ruin. Adrian's judgment took longer. His crimes were larger and more complicated. He had preserved species no one else could have saved. He had also classified human beings as assets, seized children, and destroyed communities that resisted genetic testing. The Covenant Tribunal sentenced him to permanent supervised service in the Archive Restoration Program. He opened the first northern vault after 3 weeks, then the second. Inside them, we found seeds for forests extinct for generations, embryos for cattle, horses, bees, and birds, soil cultures capable of healing salt deserts, medicines grown from plants no living person had seen. Helix outposts resisted. Some surrendered when they learned Adrian had lost sanctuary authority. Others fought. The war lasted years, but that came later. The first year belonged to growth. Purification grass spread along the old highways. Apple orchards rose around abandoned stations. Corn grew where radiation signs once stood. The sanctuary taught every crop to survive outside. Rain returned in small regions. Then larger ones, streams formed. Birds appeared after the third northern vault opened. The first one landed on the white core tree. Tessa screamed so loudly that it flew away. It returned the next morning. By the second year, Cinder Camp no longer had walls. The freight containers became homes, workshops, and schools among trees. Haven Ridge opened every gate. The black sun symbol disappeared from the eastern territories. Green cloth marked Covenant settlements, but no settlement was required to kneel. They joined by signing the 5 laws and planting a public orchard. That was all. No tribute, no throne, no inherited ruler. The kingdom grew anyway. People came from the north, west, and dead southern basins. Some arrived with tools, some with weapons, some with nothing. Everyone worked. Everyone ate. Those who tried to steal common water were expelled from green territory. Few tried twice. Years after Dorian left me beneath the highway pillar, I returned alone. The pillar remained broken. The road did not. Trees lined both sides. Vines covered the old concrete. The radiation sink west of the highway had become a lake surrounded by silver grass. Children swam there under Elena's supervision. She had become the first elected keeper of the Covenant and complained about the title every day. Jace ran the restoration fleet. Owen's agricultural war machines plowed entire valleys. Ruth directed the archive gardens. Tessa, no longer small enough to hide behind an apple, trained as a field ecologist and still insisted the first converted siege walker belonged to her. I stood where Dorian had broken my leg. The soil beneath my boots was dark. Alive, I remembered the crawler, shrinking into red dust. Mara's voice. Dorian's cedar oil. The heat, the glassback scorpion dividing my body before I died. Then I looked at the horizon. Green fields reached farther than I could see. White towers collected rain. Wind moved through wheat in long golden waves. Beyond them, workers built another settlement around a restored river. The sanctuary mark warmed over my heart. Not with warning, recognition, life energy stable. Covenant population. 1,800,000, restored land. 412,000 acres, active settlements. 307. Threat level ongoing. The world was not healed. Not completely. There were still dead zones. Helix strongholds. Raiders. Old weapons beneath ruined cities. There would always be someone who mistook control for order and scarcity for power. But the wasteland was no longer empty. That changed every war that followed. I touched the first purification grass. A small silver-veined blade rose between my fingers. They had left me to die because they thought the wasteland belonged to death. They had taken my water, my name, and the last thing I believed about family. Then the green space opened. I did not use it to hide, I planted it. The wind crossed the fields and carried the sound of children laughing beside clean water. Behind me stood no throne. Before me stretched a kingdom. And every year, the wasteland became harder to find.